It's time for TWiG This Week in Google. Stacey's here, Jeff's here, and a very special visit from the former administrator of the United States Digital Service. Matt Cutts is in the house. Is Sundar Pichai a terrible CEO, or is the New York Times just putting out link bait? We'll talk about that. Congress going after big tech. What does Matt Cutts think of that? And Peloton owners are just a little bit miffed because they can't use their treadmills unless they pay a subscription. Details to come with the entire show next on TWiG.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiG.
This is TWiG, This Week in Google, episode 617, recorded Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021. That's a Moray. This episode of This Week in Google is brought to you by Nareva. Getting your audio ready for meetings back in the office, Nareva Audio is designed for distancing. It automatically adapts to new room configurations, so you're ready for the new normal and whatever comes next. Learn more at nareva.com/twit. And by AT&T Active Armor. We rely so much on our phones these days and are always on them, whether it's live streaming content, catching up with family on weekly video calls, or watching your favorite podcast. There's no room for fraud calls. Thankfully, AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor, 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device and service required. Visit att.com/activearmor for details. And by Untuck It. Summer is right around the corner, and now is the perfect time to try out an Untuck It shirt that's just right for you. Use the code TWIT for 20% off your first purchase at untuckit.com. It's time for TWiG, This Week in Google, and we might even talk about Google today. I don't know. I just have a feling. Stacey Higginbotham is back. It's great to have you, Stacey. We missed you.
Yeah,
it's great to be back.
Stacey.com. You went to Texas. Did you have fun?
I spent 10 days in Texas, and my gosh, it was warm.
Yeah. They're having a heat wave. Yeah. Well, it's good to see you. Welcome back. Also with us, Jeff Jarvis, who's back home from his trip to
with a real microphone,
Mark Twain's birthplace.
Yes, and I'm positively giddy about the next person you're going to announce.
We are very thrilled. So I asked Ant Pruitt to take a step back. He's actually producing today. Jason had to take the day off, so it worked out fine, to make some room for an old friend, Mr. Matt Cutts is with us. Yay!
It's so good to be back on TWiG.
So Matt has a rather checkered past.
Storied. Go with storied.
Storied is good. Good word. Writer. Very good word. Storied past. Early employee at Google. He did all those great webmaster videos. He was in charge of the fighting spammy links.
He saved us all from spam.
Saved us all from link farms. And then got the call to go into government. In the last 6 months of the Obama administration, he went to the United States Digital Service. And you've been on since then to talk about USDS and to invite programmers and other technical people to join to help make our federal government's technology work better. With Veterans Affairs has used USDS. There have been some amazing success stories. It was originally started because the Obamacare websites, the National Obamacare website, was so poorly done. And you didn't go then, did you? Or
No, I was sort of in that second wave, but got to overlap with people who worked on the original healthcare.gov team, and some of those folks have now come back. So it is the perfect time to come and do a tour of government service if you're interested.
USDS.gov/join. And 4-year term, you've done 4.5. But promoted to acting administrator and eventually full administrator of the USDS, which is great. He is a colonel in the U.S. military. We call him Colonel Cutts. And
it was funny when you all were doing that, and I couldn't respond. So
yeah, well, it was the pay grade, not the title. Do you get a title though? I mean, do you get like?
A grade?
Not really.
No?
Everybody at the U.S. Digital Service is just a digital service expert.
Okay, good enough. Anyway, since you've retired from the digital service and are now just kind of living the life up there on DuPont Circle with all the lobbyists. You're not going to be a lobbyist, though, are you?
No. Oh, no, absolutely not.
Matt, I wish you would. So you stop the government from doing horrible, stupid, damaging internet regulation.
Not all lobbyists are bad, actually.
Yeah, Jeff.
I wouldn't do it for money. I just, try to help make bad things not happen.
Sneak into the congressman's office.
Just change some language in this bill. Let's just clean this up a little bit.
You don't want to do that, Representative. You don't want to do that.
Hey, as long as we're doing an old home week, I should mention that Gina Trapani, who is also a longtime host on the show, has now been promoted to CEO of her company, Postlight. So congratulations, Gina.
Yay,
she
Gina.
left us in 2016 or 2017 to go to work there in New York City and to have a child. And, she was pretty busy. And she's risen through the ranks, is now CEO of her design firm, Postlight. So congratulations, Gina. That's really great.
That's fantastic.
Be nice to get her back sometime.
How old is her kid now? Jeez.
Oh yeah,
probably headed to college soon.
Yeah, I know. It goes so fast. It really does. So Matt, is there anything you want to share with us about your experience working in government? Was it a good overall? Was it a positive thing?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, working under Obama, the Trump administration, now Biden, the thing that unites all of that is people really care about making government work. This is the people at the U.S. Digital Service, and it is such a fantastic time right now. If you are a technologist, a software engineer, a designer, a product manager, like they desperately need those skills. And U.S. Digital Service got like a $200 million infusion because of a bill that passed, and so
that's good news.
What they really need, they have amazing projects. They helped along with Boston Children's Hospital on vaccines.gov. So they've been doing phenomenal work helping veterans. Now what they need is some more people who are willing to go and help out in government. And you don't even have to come to DC right now because of the
And it's a paying job. It's not a volunteer job, right? I mean, it's actually work.
And that's absolutely right. So if you're what's called a GS 1510 general schedule, you can earn like $170,000 plus dollars a year.
I'll be there. I'm on my way.
This podcast,
so you can feel
podcasters.
It's not very long. Yeah,
they do. We do need content strategists. So if there's there's a lot of different. Check out the website usds.gov. Really? There's a lot of really good stuff to do.
What you really need right now is COBOL programmers. The Medicare payment system is 8 million lines of COBOL code. 2.5 million lines of assembly running on 15 mainframes. It powers 4.5% of the entire American economy. 53 million people depend on it, including me in about 6 months. And it needs to be updated a little bit.
Yeah.
Are you having trouble finding COBOL? Somebody actually called the radio show and said, "Who's looking for COBOL programmers?" I said, "Matt Cutts is." But now it's, of course, USDS.
100% true.
Yeah.
We have had people who learned how to program COBOL for fun because they're like, oh, this would be an interesting way to go deeper in the job. We also had a USDS former engineer write a book talking about her experiences modernizing things, including some COBOL stuff. I think the book is called like Kill It With Fire or something like that.
Wow. This is really, I think especially geeks, we're a little cynical about government. I think years of Ronald Reagan, bad-mouthing big government really kind of turned a whole generation against it. But it's really about public service, and it's about making a difference. And yeah, government is big and unwieldy, and it's running on a lot of lines of COBOL code. But here's a chance to make it work for people, and it's really important. It is a very important part of our economy and the work.
It hugely matters. And you can make stuff work for 1/10, either the price or the complexity. And you can bring in user-centered design so that it's actually a good system to use. Rick Cloud just became the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer for the state of California.
Another Googler. Yeah.
That team has rolled out, a vaccine passport for the state of California, and it's open source. So, it can be state level, it can be federal level. There's so many great places to slot in to help out with really important projects right now.
Let me just check and see if I got my passport yet. Nope, still waiting. But Rick created FeedBurner, which was a great way, especially in early days of podcasting, to make a RSS feed. I used it. Was a big fan of FeedBurner. Google bought it. He was at Google for some time, eventually Google Ventures, and is now CTO of the state of California. And a really nice guy, a really great guy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, good. USDS.gov. If you want to know more or you want to tell your friends about it, I think this is just. I love this picture. By the way, this hero picture on the site is the bestest picture ever. It is full of all. Here's the little Drupal icon. It's full of so many fascinating little things. I just adore it. Yeah.
You might be able to notice if you look on the hearth, there's actually Pez dispensers from like former presidents.
Oh,
right.
There they are right here. Oh, wow. Yeah. Look at that. Right there.
And the world's tiniest whiteboard.
Yeah, you really need a bigger whiteboard. I think we can.
Yeah, I think you can afford. With $200 million, you can now afford a bigger whiteboard.
we can get a bigger one.
That's actually. It was a nicely done whiteboard, though, I must say. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. We won't pester you too much about what it was like working in D.C. for the last 4 years, but
let me just ask one general question, if I can. Going from a private company to government. And I have a small taste of it working in a state university. What were there any kind of bureaucratic cultural moments?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's different pockets in government that are great. USAID or even the Department of Defense has some really high functioning technology. And then you go to some places that are a little that you think might be really highfalutin great tech. And I felt like I had a 40% productivity hit. You couldn't use any of the common cloud software that you're used to, or your Chromebooks,
for security reasons.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of people who are still afraid of the cloud. Like they think either it's illegal or they're worried, is somebody going to subpoena this and I won't have a chance to weigh in on it, which is why I'll try to bring this around to Google. Whenever Google just announced they're going to allow client-side encryption and people keep their own keys, like that was really big news. It took us 4 years to get access to Slack, and the breakthrough was primarily because you can encrypt it such that nobody could send a subpoena to the executive office of the president. And so the idea that you can now use cloud software and maybe Google Workspace and not have to actually worry about a subpoena because you've got all that stuff encrypted in the cloud, like those are the kinds of things that'll unlock a lot of enterprise tools within government, I think.
Were you probably weren't involved, but did you maybe peripherally in the JEDI contract and the battle between Amazon, Microsoft, and Oracle and others to get that big Pentagon contract for a new Pentagon cloud?
So I was off on the side. The U.S. Digital Service is in one part of the government, but there was a different group, the Defense Digital Service, which we were working closely with at the time, that started the JEDI initiative. So I actually had to sell all of my Google shares because I wanted to avoid even the appearance of impropriety.
Yeah.
Well, it turned out to be a costly time to sell the shares. They've like doubled since then, but that's okay. Like it's important that government be fair and that you make sure that you're in good shape. So I think that definitely turned into a more complicated procurement than probably a lot of people would have liked to have seen. But it's nice to see, government starting to embrace technology and thinking, how are they going to move to the cloud? Should it be seamless with one provider or should it be many providers?
And in fact, that was one of the big specs of JEDI was that it be an encrypted cloud that was safe for the DoD to use. Cross service.
So the irony is that government wants encryption for itself, but wants a backdoor for all of us.
Different branches of government, Jeff.
Even that's just like us, Jeff. We want everything to be cheap, but we also want it to be high quality. Right. People suck it when it comes to trade-offs.
We're not good at that, are we?
Yes, we do.
But even within the NSA, there's part of the NSA is about breaking our crypto, and part of it's saying, no, we need really strong, good crypto.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny.
So even within a single agency, there's a debate over this. I was thinking about culture. I thought that's what your question kind of was about, Jeff, was the corporate culture versus the Google culture. We're going to get into the Google culture in a little bit, but I read a really good blog post from a guy who, former senior developer advocate at Amazon Web Services, talking about Amazon's document culture. And I found it really inspiring. This is JustinGarrison.com. That's his blog. We've talked about kind of what Amazon does before. For instance, you don't start a meeting without a document, and the meeting begins with reading time, where everybody reads the document so that you're all on the same ground. It's fresh in your mind. I think there's just little things that Amazon does that are really kind of smart. This is a good piece. But I'm wondering how much of that kind of thinking is making its way into government, or is government so hidebound, Matt, that it's hard to change the corporate culture?
There was this video clip I remember of Eric Schmidt who said the tech industry and startups move 3 times faster than regular companies, and then regular companies move 3 times faster than the government. So it's tricky because the government, there's a lot of risk aversion and people are worried about getting called up in front of Congress.
Right.
But at the same time, if you can do a mortgage on your phone, it's very hard to figure out, okay, why do I have to sign a piece of paper over here? Why can't I do the equivalent of a hello sign, DocuSign, whatever? And so those things are making their way into government. And the wild thing is that it feels like now we have a lot of proven great examples. Like, I love this, write the meeting begins with reading time, and you've written the document in advance. We've gotten proven examples, and it's just they haven't made it over to government yet. And so you can literally bring in I know the user-centered design is going to create a much better experience, and people think it looks risky, and it's not really risky. It's going to make great design.
It's listening to constituents. Simple as that. Yeah, listening to citizens and serving.
And at the same time, I don't want government to move too fast. Our government is designed kind of not to be too fast, right? It's all the checks and balances because you don't want to be too efficient.
Well, I was going to say, and government has to serve everyone.
Right.
Like, when you're a company, you can alienate a quarter of your users or a quarter of the population because you don't care, but government can't really do that, or shouldn't, rather.
Although the good news is corporations now do have to worry about being brought in front of Congress. So there is a certain parity now.
That's real terrifying for them, sure.
All right, I want to take a little break. We actually have a lot of news. Matt, we love having you here. It's great to have you. I didn't want to make this the Quiz Matt Cuts show, so I appreciate your putting up with a few questions. But as you know, we're here to talk about what's going on in the world of Google and tech, and we will get to that in just a little bit. There's actually a big breaking story we're going to get to. But first, a word from our sponsor, Nareva. People are heading back to the office. The way we meet is going to change. Distancing can have big implications for meeting room audio. You're probably going to have to change your room configurations. You still want good mic coverage. You still want good audio, but people now have to be distanced. They may be facing in different directions. What you need is Nareva. Nareva makes it possible. Now, it's not a beamforming system. Those need adjustments, often by an expensive technician, and it's not a tabletop system because, you got to add mics, and then you have to sanitize mics between meetings. And in both cases, your participants are going to have to be sitting, you have to put marks on the table. This is where you sit, predetermined spots. This is the direction you face because that's where the microphone is. Wouldn't it be nice if there were a better way to get clear, reliable audio, but your team could still act naturally, still sit the way they want, still socially distance appropriately so they feel safe? One analyst called Nareva, N-U-R-E-V-A, Nareva Audio, the first socially distanced mic system. It's designed for these kinds of distanced meeting rooms. It's actually, I have to think they designed this before COVID-19, so it's kind of a happy coincidence. It was really just designed to make meeting room audio better. They actually have 4 patents on this technology. They call it microphone mist, that uses digital technology to place microphones everywhere in the room and to automatically adjust whoever's speaking so people can sit where they want, can face in any direction, and still be clearly heard. Their HDL 300 system, that's the big system, has become the first microphone and speaker bar to be certified for large meeting spaces that's as big as 15 by 28 feet. It fills a room with thousands of virtual microphones. The audio adapts automatically, no technician necessary. In fact, you can set it up. It's very easy to install each microphone and speaker bar. It's just put it up on the wall and it's there. But you'll get full room coverage. People can be heard from anywhere in the room, no matter how they sit, how they face, how they're distanced. And once you get the Nareva system set up, you get the device management in your hands because the Nareva console is web-based. You can adjust settings, install firmware updates, check device status, and more, all from a secure cloud-based platform. That console comes, by the way, with every Nareva audio system. In fact, when you enroll your system, you'll even get an extra year of warranty, absolutely free. Nareva audio products have won numerous awards. Top new technology at ISE 2020. That's for the middle-size system, the Nareva HDL 200. But no matter what size your room is, they have systems for small, medium, large spaces. Actually, they use the big one, the HDL 300 at HubSpot. Jimmy Yan, their principal collaboration engineer, said, quote, "We were so impressed with the sound quality, the ease of install, and the ease of use of the HDL 300. It was a no-brainer for us to adopt it." To learn more about how Nareva Audio is the simple, cost-effective way to let your teams distance in meetings and still act and converse naturally, go to nareva.com/twit, T-W-I-T. N-U-R-E-V-A, nareva.com/twit. We thank them so much for supporting this week in Google. Thank you for supporting us by going to that address if you're interested, nareva.com/twit. Just before we went on the air, breaking news. John McAfee, a pioneer in software, found dead in a Spanish prison cell. Reportedly died just hours after a Spanish court approved his extradition to the United States. McAfee had been arrested in October in Barcelona, and it was being held for extradition. Was being investigated by the SEC for and IRS for tax evasion, failing to pay taxes on millions of dollars he earned for, among other things, promoting cryptocurrencies, consulting work, selling the rights to his life story. The authorities said he owed $23 million. Had he been convicted, he was facing as much as 30 years in jail. The 75-year-old John McAfee, dead at the age of 75 in Barcelona. He was already on the run from the Belizean authorities. He was wanted for questioning concerning the murder of his neighbor. He ran for president in 2016 and 2020. He tried to get the nomination of the Libertarian Party. He says the tax charges were retaliation for that. He had fall of 2019 launched a cryptocurrency called WACD or WACT. Anyway, McAfee best known, of course, because he was working at Lockheed in 1980 when he got a copy of an early virus called Brain and decided to write an antivirus program, founded the company with his name. McAfee Antivirus was a very well-known antivirus, one of the big two for years and years and years, purchased by Intel in 2010. John McAfee dead apparently by suicide, but it's unknown at this point until an investigation. He was alone in that jail cell, I think. That's all there is to say about that, I guess. He was quite a character, is the most generous thing you could say about him.
Where do you go after that? I'm like, oh, this was a tough story to talk about.
Yeah, there's nothing really, no analysis necessary. But
let us also say that to anyone out there, whenever talk of suicide exists, it can have an impact on some people. So if you have any feelings of depression, any desire for help, there are tons of resources out there. Suicide hotlines galore, plus family and friends and doctors. And please make sure you reach out.
National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 800-273-TALK. There's some good people there who will be glad to talk to you. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem, and it's never necessary. Get some help. There's also a text line. You could text TALK to 741-741 if you'd prefer.
I know people who work on that, and I think Dana Boyd works on that, and it's amazing what they manage to do, especially with teenagers.
It's actually part of the rules now, the best practices for journalists. If you're reporting on a story about this, you're supposed to include the number.
Good. So, I'm actually reading from the Daily Beast story, and that's exactly what they did. So, thank you for saying that. I will, from now on, mention that when that comes up, because it can be triggering, I know, to people. Mm-hmm. we don't want to lose anybody. This has been a very tough year thanks to COVID for teens, and it's been isolative and difficult, and a lot of teens have been struggling. So take that seriously. All right, Matt. Now you're back in the hot seat because the New York Times says Sundar Pichai sucks. Can a nice guy be an effective leader is the question the Times asks. Daisuke Wakabayashi, talking to restive Google executives, all anonymous, of course, who say that Sundar takes too long to make a decision. We have seen some blog posts. The guy who founded Waze, Noam Bardeen, when he left, wrote a blog post kind of excoriating the Google culture, saying it had turned into a big, slow-moving company. Do you stay in touch with people at Google, Matt, or have you? Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because even, in the later days when I was at Google, you could definitely feel like getting a change launched was more difficult, of course, than the early days, but also just like, okay, how does it affect, international markets, the search quality in other languages, that sort of stuff. And some people are like, oh, you have to get all of these approvals, but also, it's a natural thing that when you are a really big company with a really big footprint and impact, you're going to have more scrutiny. And that's, it's hard to try to figure out how can you move quickly while still being big. And I don't think anybody's found the perfect solution to that at all. Every time I wrangled or interacted with Sundar, he was always doing a really good job.
I've only talked to him when he was running the Chrome OS division, but I was very impressed by his genial and nature, his intelligence, his candor. I thought he was a really great guy, but that does not necessarily make a great CEO. In fact, it might be the contrary abilities. I have to say, the Times buries about 8 paragraphs in. The Google executives complaining about Mr. Pichai's leadership acknowledge that and say he is a thoughtful and caring leader. They say Google is more disciplined and organized these days, a bigger and more professionally run company than the one Mr. Pichai inherited 6 years ago.
Stacey, you were going to say that, then I'll pipe in.
Well, I was just going to say what they're doing is building a story based on an archetype, right? And so you've got the Zuckerberg archetype, which is I don't care about other people. I never apologize. I never think about things. I'm just in it for, I don't know what he's in it for. Anyway, the money, the data, the whatever. And then you've got this sort of thing, which is, oh, he's too slow moving, and very thoughtful and blah, blah, blah. Google's separate problems and it's slow moving. And it is. It is a much bigger company. It's trying to do a lot more things. But there's two things happening here. One is conflating the person at the top with the fate of the company. And I know that leadership matters. I mean, you look at Intel and you can just watch how leadership has just sucked a company just down the toilet. But I also know that there are many people under him, and Google is a company that from the outside really looks pretty disorganized just in general. So I don't know if I feel like the executives there complaining about Pichai really means much. Does that make sense? And I think the New York Times is kind of making a story to fit a mold that it needs.
Jeff kind of was a little pissed off, actually, as I remember.
Surprise!
Journalistically, I thought I just came. Peter Kafka and I, from Rico, just went back and forth with each other on Twitter. Like, well, I don't know if I could do well in your journalism class. I said, well, maybe not. I think this is based on anonymous reporting. You can write this story about any boss out there. Well, some people like him, some people don't. They don't like him, makes decisions. Any boss there is. And in my tweet, I said, can you scroll up?
Yes, the more I think about this New York Times one-man trend story about Sundar Pichai, the more ridiculous it is, Jeff Jarvis wrote. It could be written about any boss in any organization. Some agree, some disagree, some like, some don't like.
Go up to the prior tweet.
And the initial tweet is, go ahead.
Media, move fast and break things is Silicon Valley evil. Google, Our CEO is thoughtful and patient. New York Times. Let's do a trend story about Google cracking because it's not moving fast and breaking things.
There is a little contradiction there. Mike Masnick replied to you. He said, how much do you want to bet that if Google had acquired Shopify, we'd be seeing New York Times story about how weak antitrust is that it was allowed to happen? So that's another point, is that the Times has a little bit of a dog in this hunt. But we have said on this show, Mike Elgin said it first, we've said it several times, that Sundar Pichai may not be the right man for the job. Google is making a lot of money. They've doubled their staff. They've tripled their revenues since he took over. But it's making money the way it's always made money, in search and advertising.
Well, you can't abruptly switch. I mean, Google is clearly trying other things to make money. I don't think anyone at Google's like wandering around going, not aware that search one day is going to erode. But I think they're struggling with how to build up that much money again. And part of that's just because they got in early. I mean, it's like you got in early on the web. That gives you untold advantages. And actually, that's why the FTC is in the Congress are looking at antitrust things now, is the companies that got in early in these kind of newly forming networks are raking in the dough. And
well, if they did it well, there's also, of course, Alta Vista and Yahoo are untouchable.
Yes.
Google, to its credit, did really well.
Yes, same as Amazon, also, same as Facebook. Apple's a little of an outlier there, but,
Matt,
it's interesting to me that I feel like Larry Page, Sergey, like they hired a lot of really great / smart people in the early days. And then sometimes if Larry or Sergey or even Eric were like, we're going to go down this route, they had enough people who were like, maybe, and it wasn't mutiny, but it was like, we'll just have our backup plan in our pocket where if this thing doesn't work out, we're ready for the next thing. Like you had a really high caliber of people. And I think they've been able to maintain that much better than a lot of big companies that I know of. The one thing I would just add is Google is, it's kind of entering, the whole tech industry is entering the lawyer season. Like, the ability to talk well in front of Congress makes a difference and will for the next few years, at least, just because of the spotlight that's coming on big tech in general. And if you compare and contrast or think about Sundar, testifying to Congress versus Larry Page, Larry is brilliant. He's fantastic. He has all kinds of amazing ideas, but he wouldn't be my first pick to go sit down in front of, the Federal Trade Commission or Congress. And it feels like Sundar is pretty well suited for that. Certainly there's areas where he, you might say, okay, well, where's the maniacal vision or something like that. But Sundar does a good job of listening to, the feedback that he's hearing, from what I understand.
So I think, though, from the outside, there are some clear problems at Google. One, of course, the firing of Timnit Gebru and the difficulty they're going through over, in general, their diversity programs, their inclusiveness programs. Employees seem to be a little bit upset around a variety of things, whether it's government contracts or this problem with the AI ethics committee. And then there are a lot of people who have lost faith in Google because they seem to announce products, then kill them so rapidly that people are very reluctant to go all in on those products. I'm sure there's justifications for that. But it doesn't look like a company on the move. And I have to say, in 2020, it really felt somnolent. The Pixel 5 was just like we can do this.
That'd be something.
They haven't put out a new Pixel book or a new Chromebook. It really felt like the company, and maybe because of COVID, I don't know, but it really felt like the company was not on the march. And I have to point out that other companies like Apple took advantage of 2020 to really do some interesting stuff, but not.
Are you
Google.
thinking about devices, or are you thinking? Like Google announced some interesting research around AI, some interesting results around DeepMind that could be eventually productized.
Okay, that's what Google I/O's keynote was, which was a lot of stuff in the labs. That's not a product. Google's always done that, from Verily trying to figure out a way to use contact lenses to measure blood glucose, failed. The Project Loon, now shuttered. Google's always had a lot of interest research projects. That doesn't mean anything as to the outside world. It's just, interesting.
Well, Google's core value isn't in devices. And so when I hear you, the examples you're throwing out are devices. So I'm trying to think.
What's something exciting that Google's done in the last year? Something new and different.
Translate.
They've had Translate forever. They're coasting. I gotta say,
they
they're
did a
coasting.
much better job. It's improved immensely, though, and it was in their AI.
And this is actually a really interesting question. And I'm not challenging you just to be snicky. I'm thinking about, I don't know what that means. I'm thinking about things like, where is the value in tech going to be? Is it going to be in like, I am producing devices a la Apple and thinking about things like, when is my heads-up display coming? Or is it going to be in services a la Amazon? Or is it in better services delivered through AI and Google just hasn't figured out how to monetize? Like, I truly am like, well, just as a reporter,
tell me what they've done that's interesting. Nest hasn't done anything in a year. More than a year.
I feel like they've done some interesting things on the cloud side. I feel like they've done some interesting works on the back end related to security, but a lot of these are nerdy and I don't cover them as much. When I look at their TPU designs and their embedded ML efforts, I'm like, there's some cool stuff there, but I don't know how realistic it'll ever be.
Chrome has had 7 0 days this year. They just had another one this week. I mean, I know. There's all sorts of issues, and I don't see anything interesting coming out of Google in the last couple of years. I really don't. Even this documents feature that they've added to Workspace feels like a reheated wave, maybe something that Microsoft's been doing. It doesn't seem inspired by anything. When's the last time they came up with a Gmail, for instance?
That's a fair point. It was interesting in the chat. Somebody said, "What about Fuchsia OS? Like, if Google's created a whole operating system from scratch that most people haven't even noticed, that's built from the ground up to, provide security or something that, current operating systems don't do a good job at." And I think Stacey makes some really good points about you don't notice all the places where AI is. Like, the search team is never going to talk about all the ways that artificial intelligence or machine learning has improved their search. But, it creates a much more defensible position where it's harder for other companies to try to compete in search. But I think you're also fair to say, look, if you're thinking about outfitting your smart home, do you think of Google first? Like, where's that Google Chromebook laptop I need? That sort of thing.
Amen to that. Yeah, I think Leo, everything you list, Google killing well-liked services, I/O being unimpressive, the messaging mess, which we'll get to later, the AI ethics and equity problems, all stipulated, Your Honor. But I think Matt's point is really important too about the age they are in right now. Is I think twofold. It's a lawyer-run age. It's a lobbying, congressional-run age, where if they started doing too much that was too exciting and big, they would get hammered for overusing their power and going crazy. And second, it's a huge company now. Eric Schmidt always said that the biggest problem Google was going to have was when it grows too big. And so it's also a Ruth Porat age, which is going to be about economic efficiencies. And so that's not exciting. Just like Microsoft for a lot of years was not at all, for I would say its whole damn life, but we'll leave that another day, was not exciting. But it became a well-run company. And I think that's the kind of phase that Google's in. So maybe we shouldn't have a show about Google. I don't want to go too far down this path. But I think that it's a different time for the company, too.
Well, yeah, one of the reasons we started this show, something like 12 years ago, was Google all by itself. Was a single company doing all sorts of interesting things, changing the world around us. I'm a fan. I want Google to be the Google of old. I want it to be innovative and exciting and groundbreaking. Maybe this is just part of the life cycle of any corporation.
What excites me is who's going to compete with Google. Who's going to come up with the next new thing outside Google? I think that's where we should be looking.
I'm going to talk about Brave Search in a little bit. I think that's pretty interesting, but I don't know. I mean, Chrome is the #1 browser in the world by a huge margin, And in fact, what's happening is that other companies are nibbling away at Chrome just by duplicating it, including Microsoft, using the Chromium engine and making their own version of Chrome.
So don't just blame Google. Blame the entire world of mobile phones. Nobody's exciting us. It's all pretty much just morbid right now. Blame the entire world of browsers. It's arrived. It does what it's supposed to do. What do you expect? Right? So rather than looking at what's there, then we got to look at something new. Well, if any of these companies that are in regulatory trouble and political trouble try to do something majorly new to go into a new area, they're going to get body parts chopped off.
Well, they're being quiet about it. But if you look at things like, we can talk about this, but we are about to enter into a new era of computing. It's going to be highly distributed. There's going to be lots of processing happening at each node. It's going to be both, not just the processing power being distributed, but like the databases and, well, networking is always distributed. All of that is going to require a different model. And Google's already built a lot of this at the macro level for its data centers and for the cloud stuff. So, and they have those engineers. And then if you look at what they're doing in containers to run software at all these different levels, I think what we're kind of in this just really super boring era where people, like whenever I talk about like machine learning at the edge, people are like super bored because they don't understand why it's going to be a big deal and they don't understand the computer problems yet. But rest assured, the people at Google do. I mean, the people at Apple do as well. I mean, nobody's going to be caught flat-footed if they're in this world.
No, but I agree. Google should be ascendant in artificial intelligence.
They might be. We just haven't gotten there yet. I mean, if you look at like TPU Lite, you look at their work with Kubernetes, you look at the partnership deals they're doing on like the industrial IoT side to kind of bring in some of this stuff. They're making a lot of the right moves, but no one gives a poop about them because they're not gadgets and they're not sexy.
But you know what, Stacey? I think the larger
they're not
point
products.
Is, well, but that's okay. The other
it doesn't have to be gadgets, but there's no products either. I mean, at some point,
you can't build products until the infrastructure has to be there. You can't build McDonald's until the freeways are there. You can't build the freeways until we figure out the best type of concrete to use. I mean, right now we're at the concrete laying state of this next era of computing. I really believe that. And I'm not saying Google will win.
I agree. Right. That's true too. The other thing is, and I'm not the first to say this, Clay Shirky said it, others have said it, it gets interesting when the technology gets boring, right? Watch out, Leo. I'm going to go back a few hundred years here. It took 150 years after Gutenberg, there, have a drink, everybody, before we got the newspaper, the modern novel, the essay, and the market for plays, because the technology was boring. We knew what it was. Everybody knew how to do it. It was no big deal. And then people started to say, oh, I can do this with it. And that's when the world around it gets interesting. So I think you're looking at the wrong place. What Google has done with translation is going to enable really interesting things to happen around the world. It's going to be really interesting what happens to be able to read information literature because of it's advanced leap years from where it was. And it's boring, fine. Others will make good use out of it, and that's where the excitement is.
Matt, does it pain you when I attack Google like this? Is it like family? Do you feel like
No. I've got a little bit of distance, and I also know sometimes you stir the pot for fun. And it's no, never. But I think it's interesting because Stacey's point about highways and concrete, like if you think about it, like Google is only just now, I think, presenting some of the stuff where they've done software-defined networking. So like the joke at Google used to be we didn't just build our own car, like we vulcanized the rubber on the tires, right? And so in some areas, Google is only just now revealing some of the ways that they've gotten far ahead in some ways, and maybe they're being independently recreated at Amazon and all these other things. But you see that, I do think, thinking about machine learning, voice recognition and transcription has gotten so much better even the last few years. And there was this article that was talking about you can almost have a coach that teaches you to speak another language just using AI now. So like if Google rolled out a way where I could practice my Spanish and not have awkward interactions with humans until I feel like I can speak better than a 4-year-old, that would be really great for me and probably a lot of other people and lead to a lot better understanding around the world. And so it feels like some of this stuff, the infrastructure is there and you won't quite know it until people pounce. And then they're like, oh, we call everybody in the United States, all the businesses once per month with AI that's indistinguishable from a human voice just to make sure we've got the COVID hours right or something like that, where, you don't even know it until it's done.
I think Google has a problem, which is they're too successful. This is historically is always a problem in any business, especially in technology. They basically mint money with their advertising and search, and there isn't a huge amount of incentive. Everything else is at a loss. So there's just, I mean, literally everything else is at a loss. It's all other bets, but they make so much money in search that they can just kind of.
Well, it's not search though they make the money. It's
like
advertising.
Search.
It's
and
advertising.
Advertising on
weakness.
search.
That's a
Yeah.
weakness. Well, advertising otherwise too.
Yeah.
Double click.
But what if they're building, think about this, what if they're building, and everyone seems to be trying to build this, a scalable digital assistant. So everybody has a little digital voice in their ear that helps them.
I would love that, but I see no progress in that direction. Is Google Assistant better than it was 5 years ago?
Stacey's not finished.
A good assistant, you take them almost completely for granted. They learn what you need and they deliver it when you need it. And you may never realize until you have a crappy assistant how great your one was.
Okay, but you're writing science fiction at this point. Okay, fine.
No, I'm not. If I look at, like Matt just talked about, things like duplex. So, or calling things up to make sure the hours
Duplex is a good example. They showed that how many years ago?
2. Seems like 2.
3?
Okay.
2 or 3?
I can't wait to try it.
The point is, some of the stuff they're building isn't for you in the methods they're building. They're building it so they can create ways to get information to you the way you want. And because we are human, that means they've got to figure out how to deliver something via the web, which they're pretty good at. They have to figure out how to deliver it in a format for Google voice type displays. They have to figure out how to build routines into your smart home that make sense and deliver exactly what you need. And they're working on that. But those things get announced as silly little features that we talk about in the changelog. And if you don't bring it back to 5 years ago. So I think we're going to have to stop measuring technology based on cool devices and start measuring it based on 5 years ago. What did my experience look like? And today, how much smoother is it? And it's going to be super incremental and we're not going to be awed by it. And I don't know what to say about that.
Think of the pandemic without the internet or just without Google, right? Think of what it would have been like without that. And again, when it gets boring, that means that it's useful and it's part of our lives. It's just integrated in.
And if you get super bored, let's see how they ruin Fitbit.
Well, there's a good example. They acquired Fitbit. I don't know what's happening with it.
Oh,
Android Wear is a great example of a
it?
product that just
Oh God, Android Wear was terrible. I was going to tell you about Fitbit. So this is a new Google product that's actually, I'm using it in my life today. Is it life-changing? No. Ooh. But okay, here we go. I got a new mouth guard because I grit my teeth like a crazy person at night. It's not fitted well, so I started snoring. And my husband was like, Stacey, you are terrible. And I was like, oh no. So then I started implementing different snoring solutions and I used my Google display that now tracks snoring. So the 2nd gen Nest, whatever, I talked about it on the show.
Yeah.
So I set that up and then I was able to set up controls between things that I was trying, including taping my mouth shut. Thank you, Leo.
Did you try that?
To see how I could do this. I did.
How did that work?
It worked for 2 days, and then I figured out how to snore around it.
Yeah.
I'm very
My wife says my snoring with my mouth taped shut is comical.
Yes. I'm like, it's
like a
basically, it's not effective. And when my alarm goes off in the morning, I can no longer say, stop. I'm like, But okay, so the point is, I was like, this was like a tiny personal problem, but I figured out Google offered me a tool that was really easy to use to start solving it. And
so they're recording your snoring.
They're recording it, processing it on the device, analyzing it on the device, dumping that data, and only sending you snored for 9 to 12 minutes versus 30
so
minutes.
They're telling how long you snored. That's interesting, I guess. Yeah.
Yes. But
it's kind of sad when you have a multi-trillion-dollar company
telling me how much I'm struggling.
And that's the thing you point to is like, look what they're doing.
But no, what they're doing is they figured out how to do somewhere they figured out algorithms that actually, in this case, it's not that hard, but they figured out how to break out snoring from coughing and any other nighttime noises. They figured out how to take that data, process it on the device, which again, this is not a huge, difficult problem, I don't think, to solve algorithmically. And then they've made it accessible to me through lots of other places. They are now bringing that technology to the wristband. So again, they're solving tiny problems, but unusually for they're trying to solve them well in lots of places, and they're going to have to solve problems to solve them. It's
probably a good thing. Just like a university does a lot of research, kind of pro bono research, it's probably a good thing that Google's sinking a lot of money into R&D, and there's a lot of PhDs working hard at Google, getting supported in their research. I guess it's kind of like a university in that respect.
So imagine, Leo, we did This Week in AT&T. They haven't come out with anything since the Princess phone.
Well, I would never do This Week in AT&T, but what about This Week in Amazon? Well, Amazon, at their Amazon announcements, they do about 150 new products at every announcement.
AT&T had, did AT&T have Bell Labs?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so AT&T did those things. Well, I'm talking about way back in the day when it was a monopoly. Is that on a product level, you'd be bored with it. But behind the scenes, they were doing amazing things like the semiconductor.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully hopefully Google does not become AT&T, which is just regulatory capture.
In fact,
being accused of that. Yes.
In a way, that's the question: is this a normal state in the life cycle of a big company? I mean,
it's a different evolution. I mean, I don't think Google's going for regulatory capture because they're like they don't need to. They've got all this data. I mean, is data monopoly, is that a thing that we should be thinking about? I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm trying to write something coherent, but it's taking time.
In a way, this is my defense of Google that says, Congress, you don't have to worry about Google. Yeah. They're worry about those other guys.
It's interesting, though, to also jump up a level and think about the tech industry. Because for a while, if you said in 2020, what are the big things that happened in tech? A lot of it for a while was social networks, which the more we look backwards at social networks, well, maybe we're not getting all the benefits that we thought we'd get. And lately, it seems like some of our best and brightest minds in technology are chasing, cryptocurrency stuff. And I remain a person who feels like if you think you need to decouple money from government in order to fix money, maybe you should actually fix government first. Yeah, because guess what? Government can still come in and take care of your freedom money and do all kinds of interesting things to it. So, the tech industry sometimes feels like it's taken a little bit of a weird turn. Think about semiconductors and chips and, personal computers and desktop publishing and how that, the internet, all of that, huge productivity gains. And then in the last 10 years, has it all necessarily been good? How good is your quality of life compared to 10 years ago because of the technology industry?
Yeah. And again, what excites me, so I'm working on a project that I'm not ready to talk about yet, but I want to. I've talked about a little bit. Is what interests me now is internet studies more than media or journalism, and the opportunity to design our future, and I think that what excites me is what we start to do with this outside of these companies. Now the question is then, do they make it possible? Do they make things transparent? Do they make things portable? Those are all issues. But even using the technologies that they patent and use, eventually. Get used in other ways and inspire other things, and that's what interests me. And so I want to encourage students to think about designing that future, design companies and functions and features and regulatory regimes and ethical regimes, and think about what is it we want to build. And also, when we're stuck in as Matt brought up, the social media and our disappointment, shall we say lightly, in that. And all the talk is around disinformation and getting rid of bad stuff. That limits the conversation to, can we incrementally fix what we already have? And it also entrenches the incumbents in power because we're not imagining new competitors.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we've concluded this conversation.
Exhausted this area?
We've exhausted this area.
Leo's like, I just want a good Chromebook. I just want
a Chromebook. I just want, and I want Stadia to work. There's just a few things. I'd love to see a Pixel. I
do want a better Pixel phone. Mine is about to die.
Yeah, mine did die.
Mine is too, Stacey.
My 4XL has exceeded its battery has exceeded the width of the case and is blossomed. Okay. And it's too bad because I was using Android 12, which I like quite a bit. I can't wait to the Pixel 6. And you know what? We may be saying in a couple of months, wow, look what Google did with the Pixel 6. It's just mind-boggling.
Google strapped a phone to my face, or maybe it was my wrist, or maybe it's implanted in my skull.
And it really may be that
Stacey, you're sounding like me.
I don't
Watch
think
out.
I'm not blaming Sundar Pichai for this.
That's kind of the point here. Coming off the New York Times story, as I said back to Kafka, there's plenty of things to complain about with Google right now and things to be disappointed in. Fine. There's stories there.
I do think, though, maybe if they had a more dynamic... It's too big a company. You can't... It's too late to have the dynamic CEO in place there. I don't think that's...
What does dynamic even mean? I'm sick of dynamism.
Well, Satya Nadella is a dynamic. Satya Nadella brought his company to be his true $1 trillion.
Is not dynamic.
He's dynamic in terms of what he's done at Microsoft. He sure as hell is. I don't mean personally
Satya
dynamic.
recognized... Okay, yeah. Well, that's what you're kind of conflating the two, and
I'm not. You are. I think Satya Nadella is dynamic, not personally. I can't. It's not. He's not dynamic in any way personally, but what he's done with the company is very dynamic.
So Microsoft's turnabout is dynamic, and you're excited about that. But Google, you're not. But you are directly conflating Satya and Sundar.
I'm saying that it may be that having a good CEO is the difference.
I don't think Sundar is a bad CEO.
I do.
I think he's a terrible
CEO. I think he's the problem. No, I think he's the problem. I think they need somebody who can do some leadership in that company. Right now, it's
There's
scattered.
Our show title. Sundar is the problem.
Well, I don't think the problem is that he's too thoughtful or moves too slowly. I don't think he's dynamic. I don't think he has the vision. He's more like those Intel CEOs that you were talking about, Stacey. You acknowledge that a bad CEO can be a problem.
Brian Krasenich was a terrible CEO in the sense that he could not handle people telling him things that he didn't want to hear. He was a bad leader. I don't think Sundar's a bad leader. He might be a quieter leader. And I don't know if he's ever rallied the troops with some grand vision for Google. And that may be an issue.
Well, it depends what you mean by a good leader. I don't think Steve Jobs was anybody who could listen to criticism, but I think he actually did a lot of good for the company. So I don't think that somebody who's nice is necessarily what you want, to be honest with you. I don't think Elon Musk is a nice guy.
But Elon Musk his stock price is up because people are loyal to him. I mean, this gets back to our old conversation, remember, about financial engineering and business value?
Musk innovates. Look at how Tesla sells. Look at what SpaceX has done. There is no question that Musk's companies...
How old is this company versus Google? There's a life cycle.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
TikTok.
Although Microsoft's older than Google. Apple is older than Google, and both are much more dynamic than Google.
Microsoft was a rescue, Leo. That's different.
Yeah.
I don't think Google's ready for a rescue.
How was it rescued? By bringing by bringing in the right guy to run the company. He also
looks good because the act he followed was knucking futz.
So, Jeff, is what you're saying that Microsoft was closely tied to Windows and Satya pivoted to a more open framework, which then, naturally got him kudos and goodwills and maybe helped pivot the company. It sounds like that's...
He came from Azure. He understood the cloud. He understood that Microsoft's mission was not selling software in boxes, but was a very different mission, pivoted the company, and has done very, very well with it, as nobody could do.
Here, I'll agree with you, Leo. So
Microsoft was very static. Now, Ballmer had the, you could point to Ballmer and say the same thing that you could say about Sundar, which is, look at the revenue of the company's up. The company's growing. All of those things happened under Ballmer, but it wasn't a company on the march.
Okay, so let me play you for a second here, and go dystopian on Google. I think where Google's weak, of course, is not just that even though it's diversified a lot, advertising is still the lion's share of the revenue. I think that advertising as an industry is going to be in trouble soon. And that's why I'm not worried about regulation in the long term, because I don't think Google's going to be king forever because it's an advertising company. But
then it would behoove
so
them to get a little innovation under their belt.
They're all agree. But then the problem becomes, then they get accused of bigfooting some new sector.
Right.
And so what would you do so Leo, fine, you are the CEO of Google. Bing. What do you think Google should be doing?
Do you think Google? I think the moonshots were too moony. I think Google should be looking for what its next business is, just like Apple does, just like Microsoft does. A well-run company. Intel is the Polaroid of tech. I mean, Intel is a poorly run company with a product line that did not innovate and is going down the tubes. I don't want to see that happen to Google. I really don't. I think you might be right about advertising. That's a pretty big prediction. It's going to be interesting. But I think for at least the next 10 years, Google will absolutely continue to be a revenue juggernaut. I don't think that's going to be a problem. Well, but now's the time to figure out what the next thing is, I think.
I agree with that. It's interesting to think about Google because they break down into very functional units. And so if you think of them in terms of silos, I started to make a list, right? You've got search, you've got ads, you've got Chrome, you've got YouTube, Android, cloud, Google Apps or Workplace or whatever they want to call it this year. But, sorry. But if you think about it, each one of those is run pretty well individually.
Yes, I'd agree.
It's hard to...
YouTube is a great success story. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so if you distinguish between, manager versus leader, I think all of those individual silos are managed really well. And Leo, it sounds like one of your things is, okay, don't just go for the moonshots with Waymo, because it turns out that was harder than anybody thought. Where are the roof shots that are in the middle a little bit where you could grow to, those kinds of juggernauts that they do have in the existing silos.
That's an excellent point, Matt. And so if they, in a way, that's what Alphabet should have been seen as, is it's now a holding company of a bunch of good companies.
It's a holding company, yeah. We keep using the word Google. Really, we should be calling it Alphabet, because that's really what we're talking about. And then I think Matt's analysis, of course, the problem with that is, okay, fine, let's break it up into 5 wonderful little companies, which, by the way, might increase the hell out of shareholder value. I think it's a mistake to get too worried about what's going to happen in Washington, D.C. I understand that that's a legitimate fear, but I think that can freeze you, and that could be bad too.
Yes.
I think,
but also ignoring it can be really bad. Microsoft was cocky. Google and Facebook were cocky.
Most of these guys are doing. It was a lot easier with the other guy in office because it was easier to kind of pet him. But I think most of these companies are doing what they can to appear to care while they still go full speed ahead with all the things that the antitrust regulators don't like. You gotta say the right words, make everybody feel good. But honestly, if you're running a company at this point, you still gotta want to win and play as hard as you can. You can't stay with. Look, Microsoft, although. I'll argue against myself. A number of people pointed out that the DOJ indictment of Microsoft helped them be a better company because it taught them a little fear and it slowed them down a little bit, and it gave them the space to pivot and to change in ways instead of just saying, let's just eat the world.
Or you could argue that only because they were so huge and I'm going to argue against myself, monopolistic, they had the room to shift.
Yeah. I mean,
versus Intel, versus other companies.
I think what's happening in Washington is pretty shameful, to be honest with you. And you're going to be surprised to hear me say this, Jeff, because you've been defending big tech and I've been attacking it.
No, I'm defending the internet. I'm not defending big tech. I'm fearful of what doing things to the big tech will do.
I think these bills, these 5 bills that we're looking at, are really risky. Tim Cook called Nancy Pelosi a couple of days ago saying, you could put us out of business. This is very risky what you're proposing, and it's going to really hurt consumers. Now, I know, obviously he's lobbying, but
I put the letter that the various industry trade groups sent to Congress?
Well, there's the Times article here, which is tech giants fearful of proposals to curb them, blitz Washington with lobbying. Of course, I think there's a little slant in this. But
from the Times?
Tim Cook told Pelosi that antitrust bills were rushed. They will crimp innovation, and they'll hurt consumers by disrupting the services that power Apple's lucrative iPhone. And this is according to 5 people with knowledge of the conversations. Wow.
Leo, line 118, the various trade groups, and they're trade groups, they're company groups. At the time when voters are looking, this is a letter to the House Judiciary Committee and Sicily. At the time when voters are looking to Congress to address the country's most pressing challenges, it seems hard to believe that Congress is instead on the verge of banning Amazon Prime and Amazon Basics, banning the pre-installation of iMessage and FaceTime on iPhones, and banning Google from including Google Maps in its search results. That starts to get to a really, what consumers are you protecting here, guys?
Wait, hold on. Okay, no, this is important because I sat through the I spent over a decade covering net neutrality, and you can read these. You cannot determine what a law will or will not do based on these sorts of letters. You have to actually read the legislation. You have to actually talk to people on, I hate to say it, literally both sides, to figure out, and you have to understand the underlying issues in a way that's really hard. Do I trust Cecilia Kang to do that? I do. And yes, she is at the New York Times. But this is an area where I would read these letters, but I knew what they were going to say before I was reading them because I had done the legwork. And this is where news organizations and reporting expertise is so essential. And I'm sorry, I've been on vacation for the last 10 days, so I have not started doing this. But, I know Gigi Sohn, for example. I'm going to give her a call, and I'm going to be like, hey, let's talk about this. And then I'll call the people who are working at the other. But yeah, Jeff, just.
No, I'm just, what I'm saying, Stacey, is that's why I emphasize 5 times. It's from trade groups from the companies. So it's pure lobbying PR. What I am trying to say is just that it's going to be a political fight now. It's not right now it's purely politics. And so there's a political view that says at some point, if you start attacking the apps we like, maybe there's a political blowback on them.
Well, that's all. It's totally political. Jayapal's bill, which basically says you can't self-deal, so you got to stop all those things that you were just talking about. Promoting Google Maps on Google and things like that. And it's really. It's as if there is no antitrust law, and so you're going to write a new one. It is, and it's not, because she says, and the Clayton Act has to be enforced. There is antitrust law. It's bizarre. I think this is very much about posturing, making the right sounds. We have antitrust laws which are not enforced in this country. It's a little late to tell Facebook you got to get rid of Instagram and WhatsApp. Facebook's right to point out you approve these.
Our mechanism for antitrust does not reflect the market advantages of the tech companies, because our mechanism for antitrust looks only at the prices a consumer pays, or looks primarily at the price a consumer pays.
Well, then rewrite the antitrust laws, but that's not what this is.
Okay. Do you remember the last time we wrote a big piece of legislation? It was in 1996, the Telecommunications Act, and we've been attacking that thing since like 2002, thinking, hey, we should go back to this. And what have we done? Nothing. So coming at it with the new law, maybe it doesn't make sense, but government isn't about making sense. I mean.
Well, and the other problem, just to build on something you were saying earlier, Stacey, you were talking about, hey, to really understand the implications of these laws, you need reporters who have tech expertise, who think about this stuff deeply, who talk to both sides. And I 100% agree with that. The other side is you need legislators with tech expertise, because otherwise you get all kinds of unintended consequences when, heaven of heavens, a law actually does get passed. People don't always foresee how it's going to play out. Like, certainly being in DC, I saw a lot of laws where it's like, this software practice will be implemented on, February 14th of such and such a date. And the idea of like doing beta testing or like a staged rollout or any of that stuff just had never even occurred to people. So for example, there's a group called Tech Congress that puts technologists working with Congress people. And so, like, if you're a technologist and you want to see some better laws, like the FTC is looking for technical people. Congress needs, some of these kinds of fellows to go and help make sure that when laws do get passed or regulations do get passed, that they're sensible and not like, as Jeff, you've mentioned many times, like don't say, here's what you can and can't do, on the specific mechanism, instead do it in the more general way and don't hard code technology into a bill necessarily.
Right. Well, and I should also
point out. What if you had beta lawmaking or sandboxing in certain, like you think about like how municipalities you can look at various state or municipal governments for new ways to kind of create some legislation or implement different programs. It would be very interesting and it might be utterly impractical because
Stacey, France kind of did that. France did that.
Oh, okay.
So I'll tell you, the end of this story isn't so great. But one of the members of the Susan Ness task force that I was part of, the Transatlantic High Level Working Group on Content Moderation and Freedom of Expression, was a guy named a brilliant regulator, and listen to those words come out of my mouth, a brilliant regulator named Benoit Luttrell, who embedded inside Facebook for 6 months to imagine what it would be like to regulate Facebook. And Facebook went along with this. And the weird thing was there was nothing to regulate against. There was no law to do. But he saw where it worked, and he came out with, I think, a brilliant scheme, which became the basis of a lot of what we recommended, saying that what you don't want government to tell the platforms exactly what to do because new stuff's going to happen and they're not going to know it and they're behind. You want to have something to hold companies accountable to. You want the data to be able to do that. You want the research to be able to do that. That all came from his experience inside Facebook. Now, then what happened, of course, in France was the legislators take it over and it gets kind of messed up. Same time in Britain, I was just part of a session that Susan Ness led today about the Digital Services Act in the EU and about the online harms thing in the UK. And in the UK, they're still going for, you must take down legal but harmful content. And I said, well, what's harmful? Harmful is now defined as anything that would cause psychological or physical damage to people. So you're going to have courts trying to judge what psychological damage, the mind gets blown, right? So it's not just our dumb laws, it's dumb laws. There's this, we got to do something thing going on. And Benoit was brilliant at saying, no, let's stand back and say, what's the proper role of a regulator? Is to hold people to account. And his argument in the end was nobody trusts either the tech companies or government. And that the real job here was to increase trust, and the way to increase trust was to get data and research so we knew what the impact was, so we made wiser decisions. This is a path that I endorse, right? And I keep on worrying about internet regulation because I worry about the kind of stupid regulation Leo was talking about. Smart regulation, I agree, is a good thing. But as Matt also said, it shouldn't be down at the nitty-gritty level. It should be up at a level of principle so that it can last for decades.
Well, and we should point out, AT&T wasn't broken up by Congress. AT&T was broken up by the courts based on a law that was passed 30 years earlier.
And I would say principals make really crappy laws.
Well,
I mean, the point of a law.
You know who makes
I'm
really
serious.
crappy laws? The Congress of the United States of America.
Well, I mean, this is hard. This is why this is so tough.
Amy Klobuchar is now complaining about Matter because she says, Echo is 50% of the speaker smart market. Nest is 30%. You guys are too dominant. I want to know what period of time do you commit to support interoperability and who at your companies is responsible for determining whether to extend the length of your commitment to Matter. I mean, it's so scattershot what's going on that it's ultimately going to scare the hell out of any company.
As you said, it's position. It's posturing.
It's posturing.
Right.
And all of this is because Sonos decided to testify that, if you put Siri on smart stuff.
Sonos,
this was a legitimate consumer
companies.
issue. No, No, the lack of interoperability between these devices, the amount of data they hold, the fact that the consumer has no rights when a hardware device becomes a software-based service is something that is inherently worth looking at from a governmental perspective, because none of these companies pushing this have any incentive to behave well absent some sort of government regulation. Why? Because consumers are scattershot, and the companies finally figured it out 10 years after these devices were making their way into people's homes, because enough people were like, well, crap, this is confusing and I don't want to invest in it. But they only decided to deal with the interoperability level, which is the Matter stuff. We still don't have any answers or basic rights when we start talking about a device that is actually a service. And this is exactly what government is supposed to do with tech.
I think it's what the market is supposed to do with tech. And I think the market is currently weighing in on this stuff. Look at all the people who say, I will never have an Amazon device in my house. I'm turning off Sidewalk. I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Look at how many services and doctors and insurance companies and essential ingredients for living your life are going to be mediated through these things. This is the same issue we heard from 20 years ago when people were like, I don't want the internet in my home. Those people are now they're gone. They have nothing. They can't, their kids can't go to school. They can't find jobs. Do
you really think that not having an Amazon Echo or a Google Voice Assistant in your home is going to disadvantage you in the years to come?
Yes. In the years to come, not having a credible digital assistant will disadvantage you in your job. It will, I don't know how much it'll disadvantage you at home. Although with the advances in like medicine, like maybe cough to see if you have the flu or COVID, those sorts of things will roll out to those devices. Yes, I 100% do. And I don't think it's a smart speaker. I think it's access to a digital assistant. And you can tell I'm passionate because I never yell about these things, and I threw my bobby pin down. Okay, I got all moral panicky.
This is a
universal basic access to an assistant.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, Marissa Meyer, going way back when, I remember we talked about this in the show so many years ago. I'm doing it again. I'm going back in the years. I just can't help it. I'm a grandpa. It's what I do. Said when I talked about hyperlocal, she said, no, Jeff, the hyper-personal digital assistant. Right? She's had that vision for years and years and years, but that also requires that the company knows enough about you to be a good assistant. And you're right, but Stacey, I think Leo's point about Klobuchar is that the irony here is don't build walled gardens. Interoperate. Okay, so tech companies, here we are interoperating. Well, I'm worried about your interoperation. It's just, it's
you can't win.
Well, shit, that's your job. As a parent, you don't trust that your kids, when they're like, we're playing just fine. You pop your head in the door and you say, really? And that's what she's doing. She's saying, I'm watching you.
Okay, that's fair enough.
That's all this letter is.
That's fair enough. Let's take a little break. It's great to have you here. Matt Cutts, formerly administrator of the United States Digital Service. He is now gainfully unemployed and having a good time. Professional vagabond. But could you see yourself as being a CEO? Would you like to be a CEO?
I mean,
that's next for you, isn't it?
No.
That's what comes after Colonel.
That's what comes after Colonel.
Going back into the tech industry, I think all the stuff we're talking about, there's a lot of interesting problems to solve in the world that aren't strictly technology. So we'll see how that.
I like that. That's true. We focus so much on technology, but it isn't the be all and end all by any means. Absolutely.
What at a high level? What kind of problems fascinate you these days, man?
Leo is just trying to get to the break. He's just doing
it. Jeff does this to me all the time. Don't worry about it, Matt.
Oh man. Okay, so if you say the political system is messed up, and you don't have good legislators who know about how technology works, like all of these things, all of these, two sides shouting at each other very loudly. How do you break through that? It's things like money in politics. It's things like gerrymandering. It's things like, voting. All of this stuff is Government is the people who show up, and the people who show up need to represent America, and they need to do it well. And it feels like everybody is tuning out of all the things that are happening in DC. They're not participating there when they could really make things work a lot better in a lot of cases, and maybe even lighter touch and maybe a lot more efficient. And it's part of some folks' strategy to make people want to tune out. And that's crazy.
That's
like
true. You're absolutely
right. We are the country that put people on the moon. Like, there's no excuse for us to tune out. We need to figure out how to fix some of these problems. And it feels like technology could help in some ways. And there's just so many good-hearted people that I've had the privilege of working with and the honor of working with. And so those kinds of things. How do web spam is people cheating on Google and in the web search results, right? That's a hairball of evil. Where are the other hairballs of evil? There's all kinds of people who need help.
Sounds like public service might be in your future. Continued public
service. Matt, I'll follow you.
I'll vote for you.
No, going. No.
He'll be our representative from Ottawa. It'll be great. Boy. I can't wait.
He's our representative from the internet.
Should there be an internet representative in Congress? I think that's not a bad idea.
I think statehood for Washington and statehood for the internet.
Yeah. Now we're talking.
Rolling her eyes.
Shadow cabinet.
The internet does not want to be part of Congress. I guarantee it.
John Perry
that
Barlow.
Would be phenomenal. Memes going all. Anyway, okay. We got to get to the break.
Go to your break.
Jeff Jarvis is also here. Leonard Tao, professor for journalistic innovation at the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at CUNY. Great to have you. And of course, Stacey Higginbotham. I didn't give you guys your due, so let me give you your plugs. Stacey Higginbotham from StaceyOnIoT.com, where everything matters. At GigaStacey on the Twitter, and don't forget to subscribe to her newsletter, and more matters and more. And listen to her great podcast with Kevin Toffel, who has refused to be on this show, and now I think I know why. So
it's because he's pursuing a graduate degree in computer
is that
science.
It? Oh, sure.
No, Matt and I need Kevin's advice for Chromebooks.
Yeah,
Kevin,
about Chromebooks.com. You have time for your blog? No, we've asked, and he said, he said, literally, I'm too busy with my master's. So I understand that. He's going to be a teacher. Is that his goal? He's getting a credential?
He wants to teach at his local community college because he's done enough classes there and he helps work with the kids there.
That's so great.
He calls them his younglings. It's really nice. And they're getting great jobs. And he just wants to help people succeed. I love him so much. It's so good. He's like a good person.
He's kind of the Matt Cutts of Python.
He's attacking smaller hairballs.
Community colleges. Yeah, little hairballs. Little bitty hairballs.
Every hairball counts.
Every hairball matters.
Every hairball is made up of a lot of little hairballs.
Yeah.
Little hairballs
it's
become
hairballs
big hairballs.
all the way down.
Yeah.
Our show today brought to you by AT&T Active Armor. We rely so much on our phones these days, and we're always on them, whether it's live streaming content, catching up with family on weekly video calls, watching your favorite show. There's no room for fraud calls. Nothing worse, right? You know what? The fraud guys, this time I got a message saying, okay, your warranty's not really expiring, but we'd like you to extend it. It's like, I know that's a fraudulent call. Thankfully, that's not on my AT&T phone. AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor, 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device and service required. Visit att.com/activearmor for details. And we thank Active Armor and AT&T for sponsoring This Week in Google. On a lighter note, what was the greatest headline of all time, Jeff Jarvis?
Headless body and topless bar.
That was the New York Post?
New York Post, yes.
I think this is a rival from the New York Times. When an eel climbs a ramp to eat squid from a clamp, that's amore.
I really did appreciate that person.
Isn't that a great headline? Let me give credit to
copy editor.
Is it? You think it's the copy editor or the writer?
Oh, copy editor.
Oh,
Probably
yeah.
Still,
yeah, the writers had a real publication, professionals write your headline for
the
you.
pro.
You can suggest it.
Not Sabrina Imler. Sabrina Imler has a story about, this is it, an eel that is eating in public. When an eel wants a squid that's on land, God forbid, that's a moray. It's a moray eel, and actually scientists are very excited about this video because they were able to get the moray to emerge to eat this food so that they can see its second set of jaws slurping it down after the first set of jaws gets it. It's a snowflake moray eel named Chani. It bites a squid.
Too cuddly a name for a moray eel. Sorry, no.
It's the secret set of jaws that evolutionary biologists at UCSC were trying to film, and they succeeded. Congratulations to Dr. Rita S. Mehta. The pharyngeal jaw, no longer a mystery. I just wanted to read that headline out loud. That's all. It's a great story.
I just want to appreciate there are people in this world who are dedicated to finding this stuff out. I love that
great?
the world has people like this.
Yeah. So this is her life work, Dr. Mehta. In 2007, she was the first to describe the pharyngeal jaws, but she's been trying to get video of it, and they finally figured out if you make it come up a ramp, there's a whole thing. I think it should be on TikTok myself.
I've been after this because I'm trying to prove Sasquatch exists.
Oh,
and
really?
So far, all of my research efforts.
Nothing has come of that.
I mean, that's secretly why I moved up to Seattle, y'all.
The truth comes out. Are you sincere? Because I have a friend. We call him Squatch. He used to be one of the hosts on Tech TV, Scott Harriet, he retired from television to pursue his life's goal of proving Sasquatch's existence. Sincerely.
Okay, this is not one of my sincere, but I like that there are people out there who are working on this.
We actually did.
I was just trying to think of something we don't know about that we haven't filmed yet. Santa Claus was the first thing, and then I was like,
Yeah. If you want to know more, go to his website, squatchfilms.com. I am not kidding.
The thing is, Squatch is living his best life. Squatch is probably not worried about regulatory regimes. He's not worried about censoring the internet. No. Squatch is he's loving life.
I think you'll be interested in Scott's kind of magnum opus, which is called A Squatchalypse Now.
Don't get the ideas.
Oh, I love it.
Available for rental. There's also a DVD and a Blu-ray if you want. There's Scott in the middle there doing push-ups.
Looking quite happy.
Yeah,
that's right.
He was a.
Does Squatch wear? Does Sasquatch wear Crocs? That would make sense. Is that why?
I don't know what the Croc deal is. They're using them so that they can do their push-ups, I guess. It's what can I say? How did we get onto this? Oh yeah, a moray. Moving on. Let's see. Chromebooks. You wanted to talk about Chromebooks. It happened today. Samsung has slipped out a new Chromebook, the Galaxy Chromebook Go, with a 14-inch display and Intel Celeron, quietly launched. It is, yes, I'm sorry to say, Jeff doesn't want an affordable Chromebook.
No, I want a rip-off Chromebook. I absolutely want a rip-off Chromebook.
He doesn't want to save money.
No.
Yeah,
only the best for Jeff.
Some sacrifices have been made in this Chromebook, although you can get 8 gigs of RAM. But it is, it's a lower cost Chromebook Go. Sorry. I think that Matt has the best Chromebook out there, the Acer Spin. Is it the 715? Is that what it is?
713, I think.
713, yeah.
713. How's the keyboard, Matt? I wasn't this crazy about that when I went to Best Buy and bothered the.
It's okay, Yeah, you see, it's no Chromebook.
Okay.
It's what we have to do. Do the best you can with what you have where you are, right? So
what about
until
the
Google gets its innovation together.
Were you tempted by the Google Go at all?
I tried it and gave it to my mom, I think.
That's the laptop, not the. What am I talking about?
Wait a minute.
I don't mean.
Wait a minute. You tried it, didn't like it, and so you gave it to your mother? That seems.
I did.
We thought you were nicer than that, Matt Cutts.
I'm going to own it. So there was an incident. There was a caller who said that, hey, your computer has a virus, so you clearly need to go to this website.
Oh.
And so that Windows computer was radioactive, or at least that's what I said. Please don't pass this on to my mom. And I'm like, well, we're done with Windows. I guess we got to switch to Chromebooks.
Yep.
And so the timing just happened to work out where I was like, I'll try it. And if I like it, great. And if I don't, then
it's yours.
Since Mom, the trickle down effect. We all do it.
Oh, no. All my laptops go to somebody else. That's right.
Yeah.
Usually not within a few minutes, but
guilty.
Usually I get to use it for a while. Actually, Windows 11 comes out tomorrow. We're going to be doing a special tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Get it? 11 Eastern. Panos Panay and the Microsoft team are going to announce the next version of Windows. We'll be covering it. Paul Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley will join me for that live coverage, and then we'll do a special Windows Weekly shortly after, talking about the brand new version of Windows. Here's a good business. A CCTV, closed-circuit TV company, is paying remote workers in India to yell at armed robbers. Maybe we should play this video. Oh, you have to contact them for demos. Shoot. I think there was too much.
My favorite part about...
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say my favorite part about this story is it drives home the fact that right now a lot of what we think of as like super advanced AI and robotics
just some guy
really
in India.
People.
Yeah.
So like dude in India shouting at people, who are robbing stores. There's a laundry folding robot that's really just a person that controls the robot arms.
That's not going to ever.
There's somebody who calls the restaurant for you when you think the machine is doing it.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
That's a duplex. So in a short closed-circuit TV video, a clerk at a small convenience store can be seen. I wish we could play these, but I guess too many people were downloading them. This is from Motherboard's Vice. Vice's Motherboard, I should say, can be seen taking a bottle of coffee from a cooler and drinking it. When he returns to the cash register, an unseen person's voice emits from a speaker on the ceiling and asks him, "Did you scan and pay for that item?" In another video, a cashier is standing behind the counter talking to someone just out of frame. There's a ding sound, and the voice from above questions the cashier about, "Who is that guy?" He's there to give the cashier a ride at the end of his shift and orders the man to stand on the other side of the counter. Washington-based Live Eye Surveillance, $399 a month. Some poor guy in Karnal, India, watches the feed from your business 24/7, and then can press a button and say, "Hey, well, maybe there's audio in this. Let's see. Here, let's see." Oh, somebody. Oh, it's a robbery in progress. Well, what's a guy in India going to do about that? Hey, stop it! Knock it off! I'm coming here from India to get you.
Don't.
No? Okay.
No.
That was just a little bit of an accent.
No.
Just a small accent.
No. Simpsons.
It would be so much more funny if I did it in the Simpsons.
It would.
Yeah. Oh my God, these are terrible. What are these videos? I don't want to see these.
No.
This is awful.
Yeah, I'm not sure this is going to be helpful.
No. The Live Eye system dings and a voice informs the robbers the police have been called and they run out of the store. What wimps. Here it is.
CCTV camera surveillance and we have called 911.
Let him do the accent.
To inform you that you are under CCTV camera surveillance and we have called 911.
And they run out. They leave. They go, "What? Oh, okay, never mind."
Please call 911 and just check outside if they have come by car. Please try to take their registration number.
Wow.
As well.
Wonder how much he makes per hour for doing that.
Nothing.
Yep. Let's see. Hyundai has bought Boston Robotics.
That's really interesting.
$880 million. The Korean auto manufacturer has bought them. Yep.
Well, they bought a controlling stake, but didn't they already have a stake too?
Oh. Let's see. Hyundai Motors, Hyundai Mobis, Hyundai Glovis, and Hyundai Motor Group chairman will have 30%, 20%, 10%, and 20% respectively. Wait a minute. 30, 50, 60, 80% total.
Carry the one.
Carry the one. So $800 million out of their $1.1 billion valuation. I don't know who has the remaining 30%. I like this story.
Robots walking to Pyongyang.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. That's interesting. I like this story. This is really an interesting unintended consequence story. In Argentina, in the mid-2010s, the government was giving netbooks to kids in the slums to wire them up. And as a result, these kids started making music. And some of these kids are now massive stars in Argentina thanks to these inexpensive, basic computers that they were given when they were young. I think that's I think that's a really great story.
By the way, SoftBank owns the remaining 20%.
SoftBank. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
And the deal was announced in December and just closed.
Oh.
I'm done now.
Oh. Stacey, I'm just behind.
Higginbotham.
I'm just behind. That's all. She Googled it. Yeah. When he first opened his Conectar Igualdad netbook in 2014, the 10-inch black screen reflected Mateo Palacios Corazina's face back at him, a 12-year-old boy from La Boca, one of Buenos Aires' historic slums, about to turn on his first computer. What neither he nor those who had handed out the device knew was that a new era of Argentine music was about to be launched by that 1 gig RAM machine. Mateo became a star using his netbook as a makeshift computer. He is now known as Trueno, one of the fastest
studio. It's
rising.
Not a makeshift computer. It's a real computer. Makeshift studio.
Yeah, makeshift studio. The netbook is not exactly a real computer, let me tell you. But you know what? That's the point, right? The cheap computer, but it did the job.
That's what it can do. Yep.
He's one of the fastest rising stars in Latin American rap. Pretty good story. This is from restoftheworld.org, reporting global tech stories.
Through this, I discovered that. I didn't know Rest of the World.
I feel like we've interviewed somebody who is involved with this, but I can't remember.
Yeah, the program or Rest of the World?
Rest of the World.
Okay.
Somebody from this has been on our shows or something like that.
It's
Luis
Sophie
Matsakis.
Okay. But it's also from Sophie Schmidt.
Yeah, Sophie Schmidt. Yeah. So,
that's where I heard it.
Yeah.
Michael Donahoe.
Yeah.
Who used to be
a lot of the people that we know, this was started to say, to give a voice to some of these really interesting stories that just don't get covered in mainstream press in the U.S. Restoftheworld.org. Give them a little plug. Let's see what else here do we have. What else? Peloton. Did you see this? Wow. So Peloton, which is the bicycle company, they do a spin bike. I actually, full disclaimer, have a Peloton bike for which I pay $40 a month for spin classes I never take. But I think that's a fair deal. They also made a treadmill somewhat later. And the treadmill had, on my Peloton spin bike, I could do a spin class. In fact, I could sit on the bike, spin, and use somebody else's spin classes on my TV, like Apple's fitness classes. The Peloton treadmill had a Just Run feature, but unfortunately, following the tragic death of a 6-year-old and 72 injuries, including broken bones, cuts, and grazes, Peloton had to recall the treadmill, and as part of the recall, they said, we're going to introduce new features to improve the safety. One of the features is Tread Lock, which locks the treadmill behind a passcode when idle, so kids can't come in and use it. However, it's only available to Peloton subscribers, so you can no longer just run on this treadmill. You have to pay a $40 subscription fee.
You want to go after an evil company?
If you want to lock it, correct?
No, if you want to use it. If you want to use it.
Oh.
You can't. You can no longer use the treadmill unless you're a subscriber. It's just a dead.
Remember how I said our hardware devices are becoming software services,
Yeah.
and we need to talk about how to regulate that from a consumer point of view?
Yeah, people are very upset Brianna Wu tweeted, wow, the Peloton Tread will no longer allow you to use your $3,000 treadmill without a $40 a month subscription. The pretext is their design issues led to a child's death. Somebody responded to her, the ransomware business model is quite lucrative. Peloton understands this is a public relations problem. They are giving 3 months free to Tread Plus owners.
Wonderful of them.
But
I would be curious how many people
exercise companies.
So the bike, you were charged for the bike on a monthly basis, yes, for the classes,
no. So you buy the treadmill, the hardware for $3,000. The classes are an additional $40 a month.
That's the treadmill, but on the bike, can you
Same
just
thing.
ride the bike without the classes?
Yes,
but is the
but
bike?
no child has been injured by the bike. I guess I don't.
Right. No, I'm just trying to figure out like what percentage of Peloton owners, the bike owners, don't pay for a subscription.
Oh, I bet you a lot of them. You know how it is. You buy exercise equipment, you spend the money on it for a while, then you just, I'm not using it that much. I stop the subscription, but I still have a spin bike, which I can use as a spin bike with some other input or just to ride it. But not the case with this treadmill. Peloton did say that they have a voluntary recall where you can return your Tread Plus for a full refund by contacting member support. So you can get your money back.
Well, then that's fine.
Yeah.
Then basically what they're doing is they're changing the terms upon which you would buy this device.
That's right.
And as long as they're saying you can give it back. I mean, of course, I would require them to pay shipping back to them because that is not cheap.
It's expensive. We had to have a Peloton person come and install it. There's a whole thing. It's expensive to ship. It's an installation process. Don't piss off Bradley. This is a great story.
It's such a good story.
I'm a fan of the Atari because my first personal computer was an Atari 400 back in the late 70s, and then an Atari 800. It kind of got me into the thing. There is a guy who has bought up all of the new remaining parts. He has a warehouse in San Jose, the world's largest remaining collection of factory original replacement Atari parts. It's called Best Electronics. But apparently, he's the soup Nazi of Atari parts. You have to be nice because most of Coda's customers adore him, writes Vice. He's a skilled service technician with an encyclopedic knowledge of Atari systems. He helps customers put the joy back in their joysticks with fresh replacement circuit boards. He's been known to diagnose complex Atari ailments over the phone. He even occasionally produces his own fresh runs of crucial replacement parts when his vintage stock runs dry. But even those who love buying from Coda admit they experience a slight tingling of animal fear every time they order from Best Electronics. If you call him too many times a month, he gets annoyed with you. If you try to order too many things, he gets annoyed with you. It just comes down to having to adapt the way he does business. But once you're on his list, it's really hard to get off. He's famous for ignoring and blacklisting badly behaved customers as he is for selling Atari parts. Learn the rules or accept your fate. This is what I love about technology, right? These guys he's been keeping this for decades. He's been keeping this alive. He will not accept PayPal orders under $50. That's it. Just won't. Do not buy more than a few items at a time. He will not handle large orders. Repeated attempts to convince him to make an exception will cause your future emails to be ignored.
Well, and the reporter reached out to him and was like, "Can I do an interview?" And the guy blacklisted the reporter too.
We're all blacklisted now. By the way, I hope you don't have an Atari computer you want repaired.
No. Oh.
Wow. I love this guy. I will. Bradley, you're on our show anytime you want to come on. I admire you for doing that. I really loved my Atari computer, although I don't have one. Maybe I could. I wonder if he sells whole computers. Yeah. He's sold out now, huh? Samsung, we did mention, I should have mentioned this when I mentioned the new Chromebook. Samsung is having an event. Jason, I don't know if Jason decided we want to cover this or not. I think we're not going to cover it, but we'll do a tech break right after. June 28th, this is their Mobile World Congress event announcing their new Android Wear-ish watches. Remember, Samsung was using Tizen as its watch operating system. Problem was they didn't have access to the Google Play Store. Google at I.O. announced, and I don't really understand what they mean, they're going to merge Wear OS and Tizen together so that the new Galaxy watches will run apps from the Wear Store, which makes me think that it's just Galaxy Wear. But okay.
But I'm confused because I thought they were merging with
well, they use the word merge, but
yeah, we were confused when this was launched and announced, and Leo had thoughts that basically Tizen goes away.
Yeah.
And we're just waiting to see what it actually
Wear goes
like.
away. One of them goes away, and it's one thing.
It won't be Wear going away.
Wear should go away.
But the Wear has the Play Store, and that was the things Galaxy watches were suffering from, is you couldn't add other apps. You had very limited apps. I don't know. Do you wear an Android Wear watch? Anybody?
28th.
Anybody? Android Wear? Anybody?
Garmin.
Fitbit.
Nobody? Yeah, Garmin. Oh, you're a runner, Matt. That's the sign that you're a runner.
Slow runner.
Slow runner.
I get vaccine donuts every run, basically.
When you were in oh, that's right. Yeah. Are you training for a marathon, you said?
So they haven't been doing marathons for a year, and they just have started to ramp back up. So I've got friends in California, one who wants to run a marathon in every state. And she said, Vermont in September. And I'm like, that gives me some time to train. And Vermont's pretty close to Canada, which is...
You could just run up to Canada.
That would be like a 4-day run, but yes.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
In a 30-day challenge, you could do that. Yeah.
Long run. But yes, hopefully going to do another marathon soon and get back into it.
Wow.
So.
Are you at the Krispy Kreme by the DuPont Circle subway stop?
Yes.
I love that Krispy Kreme.
It's such a good one. And they know you now. Like, I walk in and I just start to reach for my wallet and they're like, vaccine donut? I'm like, yeah. I don't even have to bring out the photocopy of the vaccine
donut?
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
They have a pile. They have a pile with bags. They're just like, here's your vaccine donut.
Here's your vaccine donut. Enjoy it.
That's great.
The idea was you'd come and buy 13 of them. All right. How do you know that Krispy Kreme, Stacey? Did you spend time on DuPont Circle?
Every now and then I visited Washington, D.C. for my job and stayed around there. But B, we did our baby moon, and we stayed right by there. And every day, every trip we took, we went by it and walked in and bought a donut.
Aww.
Donuts make everything better.
Because I was pregnant. So the fact that I gained like 10 pounds on that trip for eating Krispy Kremes, that was fine.
Let me just see. According to Google Maps, it's going to take me 43 hours to drive there via I-80. But I could be there in 4 days, Matt.
I'll just send you Krispy Kreme donuts.
I'll get my free donut.
I'll mail you some.
No, they're no good mailed. You got to get them fresh.
No. If you put them in the microwave for 8 seconds,
really,
they're fine.
You're kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on your microwave. Between 7 and 9 seconds, depending on how many watts your microwave
And then
is.
Stacey has a controlled hot sign in the window that starts flashing.
Wow. Wow. So, Stacey, speaking of hot, you were in Austin, and it was pretty warm. They're having a heat wave, right?
Yeah, so I didn't notice it was any warmer than it.
It's always
to me,
warm.
it was just like, oh, it's summer in Austin.
Yeah.
But it was hot, and apparently the grid was having some issues. And so 2 things came out of this. One, I talked to a lot of my former neighbors and friends about the Texas utility grid because they had their thing in February. But 2, I started seeing these stories about everyone's smart thermostats taking over their house and turning the heat up, or,
turning up the heat.
AC up.
Turn it. Yeah.
And my friends didn't have this problem. So I was really confused when I started seeing all these pissed off stories. And I was like, what is happening? And here's the deal. People were like, I can't believe I signed up for a smart thermostat. This is not the smart thermostat's fault.
It's Energy Hub's fault.
It's Energy Hub's fault. So I participated in a demand response program. I participated actually in one of Austin Energy's first ones, like before,
is
like
this
in
ERCOT?
2004. ERCOT is the energy, they manage the energy grid in Texas.
Okay. Because they were in the news, of course, when it got really cold in Texas a couple of months ago.
That's because That's because ERCOT is the managing. That's because the Texas grid does not attach to many other grids, and ERCOT is the entity that runs it. And the reason why Texas had such issues during the freeze is because they couldn't borrow power from any place else. It's not the only reason. Anyway, okay. So this issue, it's not your smart thermostat. It's how your energy company implements the program. And in Austin, you got an $80 rebate if you signed up for this program.
So they agreed for $80.
Hold on. This is, I'm going to go back to my favorite thing on I know I talk too much. Just hold on. Go to the bathroom.
No. I'm the one who talks too much. You don't talk too much.
I bought my thermostat. They gave me an $80 discount for every one of these, and they said, this is how it's going to work. When they started a demand response incident, so every afternoon they were like, oh, crap, we've got to shed load, I would get an email, and my Nest or my Ecobee would show me via a notification on the device and via a notification on my phone saying, hey, we're going to change your thermostat. At that point in time, you could opt out, or you could do something like turn your thermostat down a little bit because they would only move it up by 4 degrees. So if you wanted it to stay 78, but you still wanted to feel like you were helping, you could do whatever. Anyway.
So wait a minute. So you could override what they did? So they turn it up and then you get to go over there and turn it down again?
You could only override it if you caught it in time. Once the demand response started, you were just like hosed. Okay. So,
but you got $80 to do this. You agreed to do it.
Yes.
Right?
And you agreed. Now, Austin Energy is a municipally owned energy company, and they have, I would say, an incentive to not piss off their ratepayers and the taxpayers. In Texas, much of the energy market is deregulated, and you have power companies, and then you have third-party providers like Energy Hub, which...
They're not the power company. They're just the management company.
They're just a management company that manages their demand response. And they signed up people by offering them the chance to enter a $5,000 sweepstakes. And they said, hey, do you want to win $5,000? Because if you do, you should totally participate in demand response. It's going to be amazing, and you could use your smart thermostat and blah, blah, blah.
What was, besides the economic incentives, was there some sort of pitch that, like, why this would be good for you? It's good for, obviously, it's good for the neighborhood.
So, and this gets into one of my big things. So I think these programs should be very transparent. I think if you're going to have an unregulated industry tricking people using everybody's favorite dark patterns, that's a bad sign, and people are going to be pissed. And and this is ultimately, and here comes my thing, bad for all of us, because as Texas so recently discovered, when you've got to shed load, it's like public health. Everyone has to shed load.
Yep.
You all have to behave well.
Here in California, they just turn off your electricity.
Well, but that's a wildfire issue.
Yeah, but I mean, literally, we sit around here during the summer months and wait to see if the power is going to get turned off. They call it a public safety power shutoff, or PAPS, or PSPS.
And you know what? Texas could go that way because of these stupidly implemented programs, because at a certain point in time, it is a health issue to say it's going to be 100 degrees outside and we're not going to have power.
Yeah.
This whole story in the way it was covered is just so appalling, because we did nothing we just outrage. We did nothing to educate people. We did nothing to point. I'm not assigning blame like they suck. I'm assigning blame like you would for an engineering issue.
It wasn't.
You've got to figure out what the problem was to fix it.
No, I think I agree with you. Yeah. It was a miscommunication, but
it was duplicitous.
Because they used dark patterns.
Yes. I mean, the way my utility did it, everyone I talked to in Austin, I was hanging out with friends. They're like, oh, we got to go out tonight we can't stay at the house because it's a demand response event. We got to go. Wow. And I was like, oh, yeah, we got to go.
Oh, wow. Everybody knew. They knew. Wow.
Because they were told, and they signed up, and they knew about it, and they acted like responsible people because of it.
Right.
Okay, sorry.
It was a very bad week for Bitcoin this week. In a number of interesting ways. So the price obviously went down, but that's not really the main thing. China is shutting down over 90% of its Bitcoin mining capacity. China just kind of woke up to the fact that most Bitcoin miners are in China, and many of them in Sichuan province, and they were closed on Sunday. An intensified nationwide crackdown against cryptocurrency minings. That's a lot of capacity, so much so that the hash rate, the rate at which transactions and new Bitcoin are mined, has dropped by 50%. Whoops, that's an ad, not... There we go. There's the headline. By 50%.
Wait, I'm a dumb Jeff moment here. I would think that when the supply is down, the price would go up.
No, it doesn't work that way. Oh, isn't that cute? No. The price for Bitcoin has nothing to do with anything, including how much Bitcoin there is. However, I have to say, it feels like this could be a risky thing for Bitcoin, because it is true that if you make less money, there's less incentive to be a miner. Only, right now, the reason there were so many in Sichuan province is because energy was very cheap. And so it is the case that if the price of Bitcoin goes down, your incentive to mine goes down, which means you may have fewer miners, which at that point means the hash rate slows down, which means transactions slow down. Bitcoin becomes more of a hassle. It is kind of a bad negative spiral, a negative circle. Then there's just bad news in general. In South Africa, there were two brothers who were creating a Bitcoin investment fund. They had raised 69,000 Bitcoins worth about almost $4 billion. They've disappeared now with the Bitcoin.
There was Sasquatch.
They're living with B.D. Cooper and Sasquatch up in the Pacific Northwest.
They went to the Wuhan lab and they got some viruses, and then they went to see Sasquatch.
So this is another bad thing that happens sometimes, and I think it shakes confidence in it. So all of this together might not be. I wouldn't be buying a lot of Bitcoin right now. Let's put it that way.
So I put up just a little GIF of the falls on a tweet, and I just said, Psst. And the cyber boys are so sensitive.
Well, yeah, because you're hitting them where it hurts in the breadbasket there. Well,
I lost too.
You have
my
Bitcoin?
$500 that became like $12,000 is now down to $4,000, but fine.
That's part of the problem with a cryptocurrency is unlike stocks where the movement's sort of tied to the performance of a company, unless you're GameStop or AMC.
Wait. No. We had this argument a month ago, and you're like,
prove it to me.
Nothing.
You didn't prove it to me. But anyway, it's kind of sort of tied to it. But I mean, Bitcoin, what is the price? It's whatever people will pay, I guess, which is, volatile. Let's put it that way.
That is capitalism at its finest.
It's pure
what will people pay for healthcare?
Capitalism.
Let's see.
Yeah. How much? How high can we go? All right, let's do a change log. What do you say? And then we can wrap this thing up. You want to play that music there, Burke? I don't have a long change log.
That's because you were lazy putting it together.
I did.
Change log.
No, because I have the strongly held, if not factually based position that Google's not doing nothing. So why are we even doing a change log? No, they do some things. For instance,
I'll tell you, the next thing that's going to come is Stacey's. We're getting canceled.
I mean,
wait a minute. Okay. This one I did last week. I need newer stuff. That's an old one. Here.
Who put this together?
You're right. This is terrible. Chromebooks getting a new update for the hybrid classroom. Some new features in Chromebooks. Automatic updates for 8 years on devices. I think that's very, very good. They're going to roll out in August PIN logins for education users as part of the device setup. That'll make it easy. You don't have to. I always had a little bit of a problem with a Chromebook is you had to enter your Google password. Or if you had an Android phone, you could pair it to it and that worked. But now you can just type in a simple 6-digit PIN. So when students set up their Chromebook, they'll be prompted to set up their PIN. I think that's a good thing. Chromebooks will have the live caption feature now. We've heard that, I think, at Google I/O. For students who need alternate input into their Chromebook, there's Switch Access. There's a full-screen magnifier. To help users better understand the screen reader Chromevox, they've released new tutorials. So all of this, it's time to think about back to school already. Sorry, kids. And Chromebooks are getting some new updates for the hybrid
year-long
classroom.
snow day is over.
Yeah. And 2 days ago, Monday, was, I didn't know this, World Music Day, also known as Fête de la Musique, an annual celebration of music. Google Arts and Culture created a Fête de la Musique, a music party. 2 new experiments, Paint with Music and Assisted Melody. You want to try some of these? Let's do Paint with Music. All right, we're loading right now. Turn on my sound, Burke. This is one of those Google experiments at artsandculture.google.com. What do you want? In the sky, underwater, on the street, or on paper?
They're all pretty good.
Underwater reminds me of Moray eels.
Yes, that's amore. So now you can choose your instrument down here: flute, saxophone, trumpet, violin.
I want blobs.
Or whale.
I want blobs.
That's a whale. That's a violin. Sounds just like the whale. Oh, there it is.
I was going to say, that sounded like a whale.
Oh, that's cool. So I'm drawing, and then it plays later.
This is really boring.
I didn't piss on your Gutenberg story.
I mean,
all right.
painting is
It ain't no. You're right. It ain't no blob orchestra. I'll grant you that. I'll grant you that.
And by the way, yeah, I mean, blob is worth at least one bad I/O. Blob alone.
No, that's true. How about assisted melody? This was actually launched a year ago, but for World Music Day, there's a new version. So let's try this. Let's see how boring this will be. You can. We played with this, I think, when it came out. So you want to compose on box organ? That sounds painful.
Can't help yourself, can you?
No, not with the word organ. Now let's harmonize. Box
I used
gonna
to play
help
the
me.
organ.
Did you? Well, get on over here. Training. So this has been this. Look at that. I wrote that. That was Bacchish.
Down the aisle to get married.
Do you want to try Mozart?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's play Mozart's harpsichord. All right. Now we're going to harmonize and see what happens. It's the computer is working. Harmonizing.
It's a lot of work to harmonize that
Harmonizing.
one.
Show the computer. Harmonizing. Apparently I didn't give it the best. Here we go. See, if I actually could play the piano, this might be good. It is sort of.
It
That
ends
was
on a discordant note there.
Yeah, well,
He was trying to avoid that, but
that's why I had to think so long. You want to try a new harmony with the help of Beethoven? Sure, why not? Let's harmonize. Beethoven. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Arts and Culture Experiment Assisted Melody. I will now play in the style of Ludwig van. That was pretty good. Huh. That's about all it merited.
well, that change got 2 hus.
I'll bet a young kid could probably play with that for 3 hours, though. Like, I'm
my
making
daughter
music.
still plays with the blob opera.
Yeah.
This sort of stuff.
That's
she
all I
loves.
got. That's the Google changelog.
That's the most pathetic Google changelog ever.
I told you, it's Sundar Pichai's fault. Blame Sundar. It's his fault. No, don't start it over. That was enough. Warren Buffett is resigning from the Gates Foundation and has donated
Get me out of here.
$4.1 billion with a B dollars. He has been inactive, he said in a statement, for some time. His decision to step down comes at an uncertain time for the foundation. Of course, the Gates are divorcing. For years, says Warren, I've been a trustee, an inactive trustee at that of only one recipient of my funds, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I am now resigning from that post as I have done at all corporate boards other than Berkshire's. But he's 90 years old. I don't blame him. I'm amazed that he's this energetic. And he's given away $4.1 billion of Berkshire Hathaway shares. His goal, of course, as part of the giving pledge, is to give away 99% of his fortune. He says he's about halfway there.
I loved the quote at the end of that article, though, because he said something like, no matter how you slice it, I'm past the fourth quarter and into bonus time or overtime. He's 90 years old.
I'm really impressed, especially since he has an Egg McMuffin for breakfast every day. I don't know how he's doing it. Oof. He loves his McDonald's. I guess he owns some portion of it. I don't know.
Has a Coke with it.
Yeah.
Leo, have you ever gone to Berkshire Hathaway Days?
No. Have you?
Yeah, I spent some time in Nebraska. So
oh, how fun!
That was the highlight of the year.
So they've got like See's Candy, all the different companies that Berkshire Hathaway invests in. They have booths from all the different companies. Wow, how fun!
Yeah, it was fun. Bill Gates would come and they would have a newspaper throwing contest in the convention center. It was actually a lot of fun stuff.
It's very folksy, very down home. Yeah. That's nice. That's really cool. That's really cute. All right, let's take a little break, and then I can't believe it. This has been so much fun having you here, man. I can't believe we're at the end of the show. But we will give you a final chance to make a pick or a suggestion or tell people to go to usds.org, whatever that may be. Our picks of the week coming up in just a bit, but I want to show you my pick. I'm getting ready. We're going to Hawaii in a few weeks, July 12th, and I'm getting the sport clothing together. Some people I know are getting ready for going back to work, maybe getting some dressier shirts. Can I recommend Untuck It? Untuck It shirts are exactly what you need to transition back to the things we've been missing, whether it's dinner with friends, reuniting with family, and especially vacations. Untuck It made its name designing shirts that are worn to be untucked, because the untucked shirt is a tough style to get right. My son hates it when I tuck in my shirt. And so he said, Dad, Untuck It. It has that just right length, fits all shapes and sizes, helps you look sharp, but also relaxed at your most casual. Now, I'm wearing a performance shirt. They wick sweat. They're very cool when it's really hot. They also have short sleeve button downs and polos that are made to beat the heat. I just recently discovered, I have a lot of Untuck It shirts, but I recently discovered they have linen shirts. And I have bought a half dozen linen shirts for the trip to Hawaii because they're so cool. They look great, but they breathe. I love linen. They have all sizes and shapes, all the way up to triple XL. They have slim, relaxed, and tall fits. So it's really easy to get something that works just right for you, whether you like a snug fit or you want something a little looser and relaxed. And let's see, what else can I tell? They are kind of obsessive about the quality. And you can really tell when you get these shirts. They really are well made. Untuck It tests every batch of fabric to ensure the best possible quality and consistency. All of their button-downs, polos, tees, Henleys, and more have that just right length. They fit perfectly. The material is fantastic. They have the highest quality control in the industry. Every aspect of the shirts checked 5 times to ensure they retain shape, color, and strength. And they have outstanding customer service. So if you ever have a problem, it's so easy to get it made right. If you're looking for shirts to return to the office, I really love Untuck It's wrinkle-free collection. I take advantage of that because ain't nobody got time to iron shirts. Whether you prefer short or long sleeves, you're ready to get back to work. There are Untuck It stores. They're all over the place, 85 of them nationwide. But you can also go online at untuckit.com. Free returns and exchanges, no risk at all. Great time now as we get ready to go back into the real world to try out an Untuck It shirt that's just right for you. And we've got a great deal, too. Our offer code TWIT gets you 20% off your first purchase at untuckit.com. I am such a fan. Untuckit.com. Use the code TWIT. Everything I wear in Hawaii, it's going to be Untuck It. Untuck It. Shirts designed to be worn untucked. And they are well made and they look good, too. I'm a big fan. It is time to wrap things up with Stacey's thing. What do you got for us,
This week's
Stacey?
thing is not a thing. This week's thing is only for Android people and Google people. But I figured
That's
this was the
okay.
place for it. So
Yeah.
I tried out, Google launched something called paced walking. And basically it's a metronome for walking. I mean, you can listen to your podcast, you could do whatever else you want, but it's like to help you set a pace. Yeah, it's a little less obtrusive, but yes. And it's in the Google Fit app, which I actually had to go and re-download because I never use Google.
Oh, I use Google
But-
Fit. Yeah, I love Google Fit.
So if you use it, great. It's just a little widget or a little card in the screen. I don't know what you call these anymore.
So does it make you
Card
walk
widget.
fast? Because I'm a stroller. Lisa doesn't like it. I don't walk real fast.
What you do is you set a pace. So it gives you the option to try pace walking, and it says you can go, I don't know how low you can go, but the base is 100, and that's a
100
decent-
steps a minute. Okay.
Yeah, 100 steps a minute. I naturally walk about 110 steps a minute, 120 even. So I set mine a little higher, and you can figure this. I mean, just play with it. It's free. But I walk a lot, and I walk not necessarily for fitness, but I walk because I get stressed and anxious. And
Well, that's
this
part
is a
of
really
fitness,
nice
right?
way
Yeah,
to
yeah. Do you have to wear headphones? I guess you do, right?
Yes, but you, like I said, you can still listen to whatever you want in addition to this.
Nice.
So,
And you
it's-
try to take a step for every tick or whatever. Is
Yeah,
it a tick?
for every
What does it
tick,
sound like?
your foot.
Is it a beep?
No, it's a tick. Here, let's see. I don't know if I can play it over.
Probably
my
not.
microphone.
Yeah.
Here, 3, 2, 1. Oh no, it's going over my.
Yeah.
I'm A, not walking, and B, I'm not.
You have to actually leave us to demonstrate this, so please don't. There goes Stacey. Bye, Stacey.
Don't go.
So anyway, but again, this is not for everyone, but try it. I mean, it's there. Try it out. If it works for you, I found it to be I listen to podcasts and walk, and it's helpful to keep my pace up and kind of feel. I can't be convinced that walking is actually exercise.
It is.
I know it is.
It is.
As you get older, it certainly
doesn't.
is.
Yes. For me, it's
That's all there
strenuous.
is.
So yeah, try it out. I mean,
They say
I tried it out.
150
It's
minutes
helpful.
a week of walking or similar exercise like that, according to the American Heart Association.
I walk
More than that.
35.
Lisa
40
gets like
miles a week
10,000
usually.
steps just like going around the house. I don't know how she does it. I like to walk, but I get 1,000 steps. I feel good.
Wednesdays are not my walking step days, I'll just say.
You're stuck here with us. My pick this week is something we've talked about. Brave as a browser before. It's based on Chromium, but it's privacy focused. I'm actually a big fan of the Brave browser. If you need a Chromium browser, there are a lot of choices these days, but I like Brave. But they did something interesting. Most browsers still use Google or Bing as your search engine, or you can use DuckDuckGo, which kind of still uses Google or Bing. Brave, a year or so ago, bought Clicks, which was a third-party search engine, and they have just released the beta of the Brave browser, search.brave.com. Private search. I think at some point they might want to charge for it. I think that they're trying to figure out a way to monetize without tracking and ads, which I commend them for. Let me search for something I know intimately. My name, Leo Laporte. I think it does a very good job. It comes up with, by the way, it also tells you at the bottom of the search how much of this it got with an anonymized API call to Google and how much of it generated on its own, and actually does a very good job. There's even a button that says find elsewhere on Google, Bing, or Mojeek. So if you didn't get the results that you wanted, you can do more. Notice YouTube videos are there. There is a kind of a Wikipedia knowledge card, Google-style knowledge card. It has a lot of the features, safe search. You've got time frames. A lot of the features, image, news, and video search as well. And then you can also get info about your search and And I think that's kind of interesting, too. I think this does a pretty good job. You want to give me a...
Leo, look.
Krispy Kreme.
I misspelled her name.
Yeah?
And then look. It knew it right there.
It knew it. It could tell Leo La Papa Purdy was actually that Leo Laporte. All right.
Look up Krispy Kreme. I want to see what it gives you.
All right, let's see what we get for Krispy Kreme. It does, it's not Google yet. I mean, God, it'd be amazing if we're even close.
A map.
It gets a map. It gets a localized. You can choose whether or not to give it location information, and it can be very general location information. So that is a local map, and yeah, I think it's a pretty good result. Actually, gives me Yelp reviews, Wikipedia entries. So is that I was actually impressed given how hard it is to create a new search engine. This has done a pretty good job. I'm sure there's a way to make it the default in other browsers, but I'm just using Brave, and it's easier just to do that. Here's the information on your results independence. Privately calculated in your browser, not tracked 89%. Global results independence anonymous, tallied from all users, not tracked 87%. So you can really see, you can get some sense of the privacy of how much was used, Google was used, and so forth. This is really good. I think this is a really interesting attempt to offer search in a private form, and I think you should give it a try. I've been using it all through the show. Search.brave.com. You could Google it and just say Brave Search, and I bet you'd find it right away. So I'm sorry, Matt, but I know you've done many good things with the Google search over the years, but
it's all good.
It's good to have competition. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Jeff, a number.
So I follow, as you know, Benedict Evans, because I often get numbers from his newsletter, but this time it was his Twitter feed. He put up something from the Epic case that is amazing here. Last year, he said Apple took in about $15 billion in commissions from in-app payments on iOS. On these numbers from 2017, which disclosed in the case, half of that number came from 0.5% of the accounts spending more than $450 a month.
These are the whales, the Apple Store whales.
Somebody said in response to Ben, that Plus does a lot of work.
Wow, that's really
God
interesting.
knows where this goes. Isn't that?
There are a lot of scam apps, which Apple has had a hard time getting rid of, that charge you like $30 a week and things. So I wonder if how much of that comes from scam apps.
Half the revenue.
That's a lot of the revenue. I fairly notoriously spent a lot of money on donuts in Simpsons donuts. They weren't as good as Krispy Kremes. This was the Simpsons tapped out game. I had a problem. I might have been one of those $450 a month people at that time.
Nothing wrong with being a whale.
I'm a whale. I'm a whale. I don't get free drinks or stays in the Apple Hotel, however, so I'm a little disappointed.
Hey, you get calorie-free donuts. That's got to count
They
for
are
something.
calorie-free. They have no flavor whatsoever. Matt, would you like to share something with us?
Sure. Would you prefer, okay, so I have to say, if you're a technologist who wants to make the world a better place, instead of working at a tech company, consider doing a tour of public service, possibly at the U.S. Digital Service, usds.gov. I have to say that they need people to do really important projects right now. But I can do another thing. Would you rather have a book or a game?
Whatever you got. A game? That sounds interesting. You got
Let's
a good
do a
game? Yeah.
So there's this game called You Think You Know Me. And it's not a competitive game. You're not going to like slam down the cards and be like, booyah, yeah, take that.
I win.
Instead, it's more of a cooperative game where you try to know more about people. So for example, like if you became the president today, the first thing you'd work on is blank.
Oh, I like that.
I know you think one of the greatest things ever invented is blank. And if you get it right, then you get to get rid of that card. And the goal is to get rid of the cards. But really, the goal is just it's like a way to do small talk. You can do it with
I love this idea.
All kinds of people or people that you know really well and get to know them a lot better. So it's called You Think You Know Me. And it's just a delight.
It's kind of like the Newlywed Game in reverse, sort of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
nice.
Exactly.
I like this.
Do you keep it at your dinner table?
We actually do sometimes take them in baggies for a date. So like if we're like, oh yeah, we don't have much to talk about, why don't we just whip out a few cards and try a little bit?
I'm going to order this right now. This was a Kickstarter. youthinkyouKnowMe.cards. That's really cool.
Amy Bayo, who you might know because of Andy Bayo, or you might know just because she's awesome.
Is she related to Andy Bayo?
I think they are partners.
Oh, that's really cool. I love Andy Bayo. Yeah. Nice. youthinkyouKnowMe.cards. Well, see, that's really cool. Ant Pruitt wanted to put a little plug in. Ant's listening. He's on. He'll be back next week. Hello, Ant. Thank you for letting us bring in Matt in your place just for this week only. But I did want to. Ant's going to do. Yeah. Ant's a sweetheart.
And thanks for producing, Ant.
And he did produce.
Hi, Ant.
At the last minute, jumped in. But Ant wanted to remind everybody that he's going to be speaking in Nolans at the Wanderers Photographic Cultural Experiences. He's one of the instructors.
Like there?
I think he is going to New Orleans. Are you going to New Orleans?
He is. He's going to New Orleans.
So that's pretty cool. If you want to know more, wanderersphoto.com, and you can find out about this event.
It's a walking tour.
Oh, it's like that's so cool. October 10th through the 14th of this year, a 5-day workshop set against the backdrop. You know what? New Orleans is made for photography. What a great time that'll be. Look at, I want to do this. This looks great. wanderersphoto.com. Join Ant and many other photographers in a one-of-a-kind photo experience. Matt Cutts, usds.gov/join. I know you're not there anymore, but your heart's still there. I'm so glad to hear how well you're doing, and it was so great to get you back on. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. It's so good to see you.
Yay.
Looking forward to post-COVID times when we can say hello in person.
Next time you're in the Bay Area, you let me know. We'll take care of you here.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here. Thank you to Jeff Jarvis, director of the Town Knight Center for Entrepreneurial Journalism at the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at the City University of New York. BuzzMachine.com. At Jeff Jarvis, former TV Guide critic. Frank Sinatra once called him.
I'm figuring you're a tenor, Matt. Or a baritone?
I'm just awful. I'm bad in any register. Like soprano, I'm terrible. Bass, I'm terrible. Just all around bad.
Gotten you in here on the Craig.
We usually make Ant sing, but I guess we won't. Do that.
Matt, you can follow the Stacey rules. You don't have to sing.
Yeah, she abstains.
The screen would just crack if I started to
that's cool.
sing.
That's a nice thing. Yeah. Stacey Higginbotham's at StaceyOnIoT.com. Subscribe to her free newsletter. Check out our events. And, of course, the great IoT podcast with Kevin Toffel. Thank you, Stacey. Thank you, all of you. I really appreciate your visiting and listening to the show. There's a couple of things I want to tell you about. We now have a Twit Club at twit.tv/clubtwit. It's a chance for you to support what we do here if you like our stuff. And there are some benefits to you, too. Ad-free versions of all our shows, and you know what that means. Ad-free means tracker-free as well, so it's a good privacy option. You also get access to our wonderful Discord server, and it has been a lot of fun in the Discord server. You get to listen in, you get to post animated GIFs. There's of course, every show has a thread in the Discord server, but there are also conversations about everything from books to comics to Linux to IoT to travel. Check it out. And of course, a special feed for the Twit Plus members of stuff that didn't make it into the shows, a lot of pre-show banter, things like that. Come join us, says Patrick Delahany. Show the animated GIF. If you want to join, it's twit.tv. Twit.tv. It's a fun place to be. /club-twit. We're also going on a cruise next year to Alaska. Join me and join Lisa and me.
What?
Oh, I didn't tell you about this?
No.
Well, it's easy.
They're leaving from Seattle.
We're going from Stacey's home area. In fact, maybe we can get a little Stacey action pre-cruise, something like that. Cruise.twit.tv. It's a Holland America cruise to Alaska. It's going to be a lot of fun in July 2023. We have already 30 people signed up, which is great. If we can get to 30 cabins.
Wait, it's 2022, right?
2. Thank you for correcting that. July 16th through 23rd, 2022. You know, I just signed up to go on a Mississippi River cruise in 2024. So we do have to
plan ahead.
You have to plan these ahead, honestly. So save the date and get on in there and sign up if you're interested. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have some events, cocktail parties, photo walks, things like that. Cruise.twit.tv for more information. We do.
How many people?
The boat holds thousands, but I don't think we're going to get that many. We have 30 so far. If we get to 60, we can add another host. You could start lobbying now, Jeff. So
I do watch Building Alaska every chance I get on HGTV.
Alaska's beautiful. I've been on an Alaska cruise before, and it's really a nice trip. It's really fun, and they do it in the summertime because otherwise it'd be chilly. But it's very pleasant in July. We do This Week in Google every Wednesday, around about 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC. You can watch us do it live at twit.tv/live. If you're watching live, chat with us live, irc.twit.tv. On-demand versions of the show available afterwards at our website, twit.tv/twig. You can also join us on the YouTube channel with all the videos. Actually, the best thing to do would be get a podcast client, right? And subscribe. If you do that, you'll get it automatically the minute it's available. If that client should happen to offer a chance to review the show, a 5-star review would be much appreciated. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Stacey. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks to Matt Cutts, Colonel Cutts. We'll see y'all next time on This Week in Google. Bye-bye.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, and I want to tell you about my show, Hands on Photography, here on Twit TV. Each and every week, Thursday that is, I like to sit down and share with you the best tips and tricks that are going to help make you a better photographer. And it's not always about Photoshop. It's not always about just having the biggest and baddest and bestest camera. It can be the simplest of things, like leave your eye open when you're looking through the viewfinder. All of these simple tips can really help step your photography game up. So subscribe to the show today. That's twit.tv/hop. And I look forward to talking to you soon.